All right, welcome back to Film Tangents, everybody. This week we're going to be going over Quentin Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs from 1992. I'm Jack.
This is Jake.
And this is Edward. Welcome back, everybody.
Yep. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube or listening on YouTube, rather. And then subscribe if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. We have an episode each week on Mondays on YouTube, Tuesdays on Apple Podcasts.
Welcome
And
back.
if you want to hit the bell to get the notifications for when videos come out,
Yeah, dude,
as well.
I'm always notified. I only on YouTube. I only have notifications for, I think, our channel, and I think there's a YouTube analyst for tennis. If you want to check him out, Jack, I don't know, but there's a guy named Gil Gross, like G.
Okay.
ILL and then gross, oh, that's gross. And he's like a great
like fish gills.
Yeah, he's a great guy. So I think I have notifications for him and us, and that's it. I think. Hit the notification, everybody. Before we get going, a quick RIP to the man, the myth, the legend, Val Kilmer, who passed away. I believe he passed away like yesterday or the day before. Obviously known for being Batman, known for his great role in the movie Heat, known for his iconic role in what is it, Top Gun.
Yep.
And he made that great appearance in the latest Top Gun Maverick. Big RIP to him. He will be missed. It is sad. There's a documentary about him that I've been meaning to watch for a long time named Val, VAL, that was nominated for, I think, for like Oscars and stuff like that. So I think it's like very insightful because I believe he was living with a condition, like a chronic health condition. I don't know the name of it off the top of my head. But RIP to him. Anything you guys want to add? If not, we can move into the show proper.
Yeah, I always think of Heat when I think of Val Kilmer. Obviously, De Niro and Pacino give fantastic performances in Heat, but Val Kilmer also does as well.
Mhm.
Like I always loved
Masterclass.
Yeah, I love his performance is so nuanced in Heat. I just love I love his line delivery in Heat. Like Edward, I think one time when I watch Heat like once a year at least. This is so good. But I think I even sent you, Edward, one time like a Snapchat video of one of Val Kilmer's line deliveries in Heat because I just loved it. Like it was just it just sounded like real. It sounded like real life dialogue. It just in such a way that, it just felt so authentic. And there's a lot of moments like that with his character in Heat. And he's a great part of that movie. The fourth guy too. I don't know the actor's name, but he's awesome too. Like everybody in Heat's awesome, but the fourth guy on there, or the fourth main guy, he's the third guy in their like thievery ring or whatever. Not Danny Trejo, but the other guy. I don't remember his name, but he's awesome. Everyone in that movie's awesome. It's an awesome movie.
I've been meaning to watch that movie for so long because I think to this day. I've only seen it once, and I have to rewatch. I think you might be talking about Michael Sherito. I think Tom Sizemore. Maybe he's the one you're talking about. Don't remember.
Let me see. The guy I'm talking about is Tom. Yeah, Tom Sizemore.
Okay.
Tom Sizemore. Yeah, he's great. I don't know what else he's in. Tom Sizemore. I don't know what else he's in, but he's great in Heat. He's in Saving Private Ryan. Okay. Black Hawk Down. Yeah. No, Heat's awesome.
Yeah, we watched it together, man. Yeah. We watched it together, and that iconic. I mean, Val Kilmer. I mean, yes, these other two actors are great, but like the scene that plays in my head, dude, is that shootout in the middle of the street with Val Kilmer being like almost like kind of the main guy when it comes to these shootouts. I mean, that was just such a great action scene that I think it was a one take too, right? I mean, just for so long that action scene is so iconic.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like it's like a 10-15 minute shootout. And I'm not even exaggerating that. I think it is at least 10 minutes.
Yeah.
but it just the way the storytelling in that scene keeps it entertaining.
Yeah.
But yeah, Heat is one of those movies that I just watch every time I watch it. It just gets better, and it's at a 10, but it just becomes a more solid 10. Yeah. Like every time I watch it, it's just so good the way they, just. I think it's Michael Mann's masterpiece. The way he demonstrates kind of their process in that movie of pulling off these heists, and then De Niro's character is fantastic in that movie because he has this conflict where he's riding this line between being this ultra disciplined kind of thieving monk in a way, where he has just this monk like discipline. He even lives in an apartment with no furniture, no attachments, but then he's conflicted when he meets this woman that he really falls in love with. It's just a great story. And then the way he contrasts with Pacino's character, it's so great. And just the way how authentic the heists feel. They're not hyper Hollywood Ocean's 11 style heists. They're gritty, realistic, grounded, armed robberies, basically. And yeah, I love everything about that movie. But yeah, R.I.P. Val Kilmer. What a great career. Yeah, I only wish we could have seen him in more stuff, but unfortunately, I'm sure his condition had something to do with that.
Yeah, I think he lived with that condition for a long time, because I think it started developing for him like I think maybe in like late 90s, early 2000s started coming in.
Man.
And then it just became like debilitating. Time. I think at some point he just wasn't in movies at all. So that to me, that's like the great part of having seen him in that Maverick movie, despite the fact that, you could say, I mean, they implemented it into the film itself, but yeah, I think that was great that Tom Cruise brought him in there for that. It's coming because now he's gone. But yeah, R.I.P.s. Jack, I know that you had something very interesting for us. You can.
Yeah. So before we kind of get into too much of the tangents, kind of keeping the Tarantino kind of movie concept at a forefront here, I had an idea. So making it easy on myself, I'm thinking of mediating, a draft between you and Jake of who can build the best list of 3 Tarantino movies, and then we can leave it up to the subscribers and listeners to see who built the better list. I'm sitting here kind of with a flip a coin on Google, so I'm going to defer to Edward to see if you want to call heads or tails.
I am going to say heads.
Okay, you can't see it on the camera, I don't think, but
I can see it.
Is that head?
Oh, tails.
Okay.
All right, Jake. So you're gonna take this first draft pick for Tarantino movies.
Boy, here we go.
Who are we taking?
Okay, so it's top 3 Tarantino films, basically.
Yep, and this is your number 1 pick.
Okay, draft. And then Edward can't pick the same one as me, essentially.
Yep,
okay,
so you can get
you get first dibs. You get first dibs, sir.
Yeah, so Tarantino movies, my number 1 Tarantino film at this point in my life, it's got to be The Hateful Eight. Man, I rewatched Hateful Eight last year, and to me, The Hateful Eight is not only is it a Western version of Reservoir Dogs, he took the basic concept of Reservoir Dogs, which itself was the basic concept of the movie The Thing. So some people don't know this, but Tarantino has mentioned it in interviews that John Carpenter's The Thing was a big influence on Reservoir Dogs. This paranoia, guys trapped in this single location and paranoia arising. In The Thing, of course, it's who's infected with the thing, the alien parasite. And then in Reservoir Dogs, it's who's the rat. And then in Hateful Eight, it's it's a little more nuanced. It's kind of like who is the law and who's a criminal, and it could be it's not necessarily just one. It could be multiple people. And the Hateful Eight it's kind of a Western version of Reservoir Dogs. I think it's also a more refined version of Reservoir Dogs because you really get that. It's not only is it it has more runtime, but the longer runtime allows Tarantino to really just build that paranoia and just stretch that rubber band out. But anyway, for me, I think it's got to be the Hateful Eight at this point. There's other ones that I'm tempted to pick, but I don't think at this point, I don't think there's any competition, especially after rewatching it last year.
Okay, Hateful Eight at 1 for Jake. We'll move over to you, Edward. What's on your mind here? What's going through your list?
Respectable decision. I was just looking at all Tarantino movies, and I swear to God, I knew he was going to say Hateful Eight. I knew he was going to be like, I'm going to take Hateful Eight. If I could have, I would have at least put this somewhere in my list, and now it's taken. So now I have to live with that.
You knew I was drafting the Tom Brady of Tarantino movies.
Yeah, I think you were drafting Hateful Eight.
Not everyone would agree with that.
Because you rewatched it recently, so I know that you have I knew coming into this that you had a high opinion of it. I share your thoughts of that film. I don't think it's his best film, but I do think that it deserves consideration being up there. For me, the Tarantino movie that I am going to go ahead and steal right away. Right away, I'm taking this movie. You're not gonna have it. I'm taking Kill Bill.
I know. Oh, okay. I thought I thought it was gonna be a different one. All right.
I'm taking Kill Bill. Yeah. Kill Bill. And with Kill Bill, it has to be said, and I'm gonna cheat, but I'm cheating. That's like a 4-hour movie. If you take it into like the whole thing, right? Part 1 and 2,
Volume 1, Volume 2.
It was supposed to be one movie, but he released it as like 2 parts of the same film. I think Kill Bill is Tarantino's like opus in terms of like how grand the narrative is, how much context that story is covering, and also in terms of just the sheer amount of inspiration that came into that movie from all sorts of genres, right? It's like the weeaboo, like like the weeb, like American filmmaker movie. I can't think of any other movie by an American filmmaker outside of like outside of nothing. This is like the movie, because there's obviously adaptations of like, stuff like Battle Angel Alita or like, adaptations of Ghost in the Shell and stuff like that. But those are just adaptations. This is like a whole original creation, super weeb original creation, right? Because it's taking of obviously a huge inspiration of Bruce Lee kung fu movies, right? It's just taking all that, right? Obviously in the poster with the bride, how she's dressed, it's the Bruce Lee, iconic like one-piece suit that he's wearing, right? So it's like you're taking all these kung fu movies, you're taking just like samurai revenge, like sword thrillers. Jake and I watched one. Funnily enough, somebody that left a dumbass message on our video of it. Lady Snowblood. Shouts out to you.
Well grilled they were.
Yeah, shouts out to you, commenter. Thanks for the little boost of that video. But yeah, huge inspiration of Lady Snowblood. A lot of the skeleton of that movie, Tarantino took it to his film. Of like a bride, and separated from their child. And again, I just think this movie beautifully covers this whole narrative. It just gives you this kind of chapter by chapter storytelling that he kind of became famous for, with having all these killers that she has to go and get, because they wronged her, and then setting up the final boss, Kill Bill, the final boss of the movie, and just the 2 contrasting elements, right? The first film, you get introduced to the character. She's in the hospital. She regains movement in her feet. Let's go and kill everybody, right? And that in and of itself is such like a fascinating and thrilling and enthralling just like narrative thrust, right? And then from there, we're also building up to the villain of that movie, which is the big samurai fight that she's going to have in the end. Iconic movie. From that soundtrack, the whole, That iconic, music in that movie.
Even I know that one.
The iconic shots of her wearing the helmet and riding around, the backstory of the katana and how she got it, like just iconic. But then that beautiful end scene in the snow and that big fight and her against like 100 other dudes, just epic, epic, epic and bombastic, maximalist movie. Beautifully shot. I think Robert Richardson shot this movie. Yeah, man. And then you switch to chapter 2 and you have those black and white like flash forwards and flashbacks in that movie.
And anime backstory
exactly
too.
Yeah, so we also have
anime in there.
Yeah, we have the anime backstory. I think Studio IG like animated that whole. I know so much about this movie because I'm fascinated by it. Studio IG, Production IG rather. They animated that whole section of it for him, and the animation of that scene is gorgeous animation. And then an iconic ending to the whole story. To me, that's like top tier Tarantino. To which I think is even the point for why he was. I don't know if he still is trying to make it like a Kill Bill Volume 3 into his 10th and last film. I don't know if he's going to follow through with that, but for me, for my first round pick, Tarantino, it's got to be Kill Bill.
Strong picks. So before we move on, would both of you rate those movies a 10? Are those both 10s on your list or close to it?
Close to it, for sure.
Yeah, I think I have Hateful Eight at a 9.
I have Kill Bill at a 9.
Kill Bill might be an 8. I don't know if any of Tarantino's movies I have at a 10, to be honest.
Okay. I don't think I have any of his movies at a 10 either, but Kill Bill is the one of his movies that I gave a 9 to. So that, to me, that was always going to be like, I need to get Kill Bill.
Okay.
So I'm happy
Both
Jake didn't pick it
for you guys.
I was gunning for it.
Yeah.
And I could
for me, though,
Kill
out
Bill
of
and make
Tarantino's,
it a 10,
yeah, out of Tarantino's movies, like he has 9 films, and I think at least half of, I think all of them I have at either an 8 or a 9, and then I think Death Proof I have at a 7 or a 6, maybe, so too. And then, but everything else is either an 8 or a 9. So he's pretty much a 10 out of 10 filmmaker.
He is, for sure.
Yeah,
there's no individual film of his, because here's the thing with Tarantino movies is just him stylistically and on a story level, he doesn't really delve into, I mean, don't get me wrong, his movies are thematically rich and character driven and all of that. They're works of art. But none of them really go that extra thematic mile that like say Shawshank Redemption does, sure. Where it's like, oh, this was like just made me think about my own life. At the end of the day, most of his movies are just kind of fun movies,
Yeah.
So yeah, he doesn't have, for me, a Shawshank Redemption, that's like in my top 5. That's a 10 out of 10 for me. Like, he doesn't have a movie that's quite at that level, but his movies are so good at what they are. And again, they are, I don't want to downplay them. They're not just stupid fun. Most of them are thematically rich, with the exception of maybe like Death Proof. And Kill Bill is a little more focused on fun and stuff, but there are some interesting themes in Kill Bill and some thought-provoking scenes.
Yeah, 100%. So the last time I watched that movie, I have a great memory of it because it was we were snowed in our apartment. I think this was like back 2018, maybe 2019, early 2019.
Edward Snowden.
Yeah, we were snowed in, dude. And I remember that I watched
snowed in.
When I watched that movie, very funny. When I watched Kill Bill, then I remember just saying like, man, this is. My thought was like, this has to be one of the greatest movies ever made. And then I think I also watched Blade Runner 2049 in that same session. I was just like, we're just indoors, so I was just like kind of blasting through movies.
That's a good lineup.
Yeah, but yeah, Kill Bill. Jake, what did you got?
Awesome. So round 1, we got Hateful Eight for Jake, Kill Bill, and we'll give you volume 1 and 2 since it's a 2-part film. Just so those 2 are off the board. So back to you, Jake, for round 2.
Yeah. So for round 2, I gotta say, it's between 2 movies. I'm gonna have to say, if I were being a shrewd draftsman, I don't know, I would pick Pulp Fiction, but I'm gonna go with more personal favorite and pick Django Unchained. I have both of those movies at a 9, but I think I like Django Unchained just slightly better. I think it's a better movie. Slightly, despite having them at the same score, I think Django Unchained is a Django. You got me fucked up.
Django Unchained.
Django Unchained. Django Unstronged. Yeah, I gotta put Django at a stronger 9.
I knew this was going to go round 2. I knew it had to go round 2.
Yeah, so Django Unchained. Yeah, Django's awesome. I mean, it's the ultimate just revenge fantasy, power fantasy film. It's what you always wanted to see done to slavers, of any, pretty much any time of period of human history, but in this case it's the American South, which is obviously the most recent and geographically relevant instance of the horrible institution of slavery. Since we're in America and everything, and yeah, it's just the ultimate power and revenge fantasy with a lot of great themes in there, though. It's not just that. Again, it's not just cheesy grindhouse fun. It is it treats the historical context with, I guess, thematic respect and diligence, and yeah, it's an awesome time, and Django is a fantastic modern folk hero,
Yeah, I agreed.
And the shootouts are awesome.
The shootouts are awesome, and they play hip hop in that movie. They play like a Rick Ross song.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. Oh yeah, they play a Rick Ross song, and then they play don't they play a DMX song or something when he's shooting in the ending shootout or whatever?
It's awesome.
But it doesn't feel out of place because it's like I think the Rick Ross song was an original was made for the movie.
Yeah.
And then I don't think I think it's a DMX song, but whatever song I'm thinking of, like "Get It On Till I Die," whatever. I think that's DMX. I don't remember, but but that has a solid kind of, I don't know, just Western sound to it. Maybe that's only because I associate it with Django, but yeah. Oh, and a great villain too, by Leonardo DiCaprio. Incredible performance. Yes. Just a great balance between cunning, cunning, intelligent villain and spoiled, just rotten brat who needs to be bested. Oh, and then Samuel L. Jackson too. Yeah. Great character.
Incredible performance from him too. Those two guys were robbed. Neither of them were nominated for those performances for supporting actors, and they should have.
Jeez, crazy.
Because those two performances were so fucking good.
And also talk about the balls of Tarantino. There are moments in Django where they tackle the subject matter in such a way that's just so uncomfortable, but so necessary and so real, because it is an uncomfortable topic. And there are moments in that movie that just make me squirm, just like, fuck, man, I can't even believe this happened 2 centuries ago, not less than 2 centuries ago. But yeah, so Django Unchained, number 2.
All right. I see you. All right. So this is my second draft pick for the greatest Tarantino unit of all time. I am going to right away lock this in. You're not going to take it from me, although it seems like you were not thinking of it. I'm putting in here Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is,
you can have it.
Yeah, which is his most recent picture. Yeah, for anyone of those who haven't seen it, this is a period piece of Hollywood in, I believe it's the 60s, right? 60s, early 70s. And the movie,
60s,
the 60s, right? Yeah, it's the 60s. And the movie's happening during the same time that Charles Manson is out there. And then this movie is covering the life of a fictitious actor, but who is actually based on a real actor. I forget the name of him, of the actor that Leonardo DiCaprio plays, but he's playing a character that's based on somebody, loosely based on somebody, of this like great but struggling actor who's kind of lost the spark for acting. And so he's just kind of navigating Hollywood and going through these roles. So great kind of little thing with him there. And then we also have the Brad Pitt character who is his stunt double. And so we have this kind of dynamic duo element of the film. Meanwhile, we also have what's her name? Sharon Tate, I think is her name. And she's played by Margot Robbie. And this is an element of real life about her and I forget this guy, even though we mention him every now and then. The director of Rosemary's Baby,
Roman Polanski.
And this is this is the element of the film that's based on real life too, which is that Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate, that they were kind of being watched by Manson and his people. And then famously there was a great act of terror and bad things, in which those people then ended up not being unalived, just to kind of put it bluntly. And by that I mean Sharon Tate and I think somebody else, but not Roman Polanski.
Yeah, Roman Polanski was like on a business trip.
He was out
or something.
Yes, and so this is kind of like Tarantino bringing us back to 60s Hollywood. Doing what a lot of filmmakers do, which is just make a movie about movies. This is a movie about movies, but I think what makes this movie great, I think what makes this movie outstanding, and what makes this movie, I think, one of the ones that will go on to be looked at as one of his greatest movies. Like up in his top 5. If he makes 10, I think this is going to be definitely a top 5 Tarantino movie, and I think this is going to age great. Is the fact that this is coming from somebody that I think knows Hollywood and movies better and with more passion than I think anybody else making films today. Like I would say that the biggest movie nerd out of just being a movie nerd in Hollywood is Tarantino. The guy writes books about it. You can hear him just talking endlessly about just these B movies and Roger Corman movies and all this nonsense that nobody has ever heard of and nobody knows about, but he knows about all that stuff,
Oh, yeah.
So it's you get that guy, right? And then you also get somebody with the cinematic ability and writing prowess that he has. And then you just ask him to make the Hollywood movie about Hollywood and about film. I think this is it, if I was going to kind of compile movies about Hollywood, all the fucking shitty movies about Hollywood, La La Land, whatever you want to name, I think this is the number one Hollywood-based film. And then outside of that, DiCaprio gives an insanely wonderful performance. He didn't win for this, but it's great. I would wager that this is actually a better performance from him than he had in The Revenant. I would say that this is maybe his best performance up there with his performance in The Wolf of Wall Street. This is a great performance from him. Obviously Brad Pitt gives the performance of his career. He won an Oscar for this movie. And then there's a bunch of young faces in this movie that have come out to just be now kind of the new Hollywood, right? We have people like the lady that was in the movie.
Sweeney's in this movie.
Yeah, she is. And then the lady that was in the movie Anora, she won Best Actress. She's in this movie. Margaret Qualley, the girl from The Substance that we watched earlier this year, she's in this movie. A lot of talent was recognized and put in this movie. That guy that played Elvis and that played the bad guy in the new Dune movie, I forget his name. He's in this movie. Just a lot of great actors are in this film and just kind of add to the flavor of it all. And then, this movie has just a lot of iconic and very tense scenes. In particular, there's a scene where Brad Pitt goes to the ranch that's kind of being occupied by all these kind of Manson people, but he knows somebody there, so he wants to go and see his old friend. And then that's to me, that's one of the tensest scenes ever made. Just continuing to pull this rubber band and pulling it and pulling it and pulling it and pulling it to the point where you're just it's going to snap at any second. It's like when you watch those videos of people putting rubber bands on a watermelon.
Watermelon,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then the watermelon, you kind of just go like, oh my God, the watermelon's going to blow up at any moment, you know. This is the equivalent of that, you know.
No one does that better than
No,
Tarantino.
nobody does that better than
and
him.
he does it by just putting more time into the scene. Like it shouldn't even be that hard, which I get. Like Tarantino has the ability to make his movies as long as he wants and his scenes as long as he wants. Nobody's like making him cut down his movies, but yeah, he used that rubber band analogy that you just used in his interviews, where he just says like, I want to see how far I can stretch that rubber band before it snaps. And that scene is like more. That scene's even more tense than the Hans Landa scene, or Hans Lanza, whatever his name is.
At the beginning of
okay, Glorious Bastards, yeah, incredibly tense. I remember watching that because you and I watched that movie together for the first time, and I remember watching that scene and just sitting there and thinking, I was amazed. I had this pit in my stomach of this feeling of what the hell is going to happen, dude. Like I felt like I was in Brad Pitt's shoes in that scene. I felt like I was on that ranch, and because you have the historical context, you know who these people are, you know they went on a killing spree. So yeah.
But
good pick, man.
Yeah, no, wonderful Tarantino. Again, shot by Robert Richardson, so the movie looks gorgeous. A lot of wonderful shots, a lot of trademark Tarantino stuff. I really think this movie's fantastic. On a rewatch, I have it at an 8 right now. On a rewatch, I very much expect it to go up beyond that. It's just a movie that I have a lot of respect for, and it's a movie that I personally just want to do more digging on because I think the movie has a lot of interesting details that are just kind of ripe for me, for my curiosity. I just kind of want to investigate it. But yeah, that's my number 2 draft, Kill Bill, and now Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, fun fact too. The guy who plays Manson in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood also played Manson in Mindhunter, which that guy is unreal as Manson. He has more screen time with the character in Mindhunter. It's almost like he plays Manson better than Charles Manson himself, like in that weird way, where it's just like, holy shit, like this is Charles Manson, not the real one, you know? Like it's because it's like he plays like your mental image of Charles Manson, you know? Like if you were to sit down and try to recall a Manson interview, the inane the insane rambling of a Manson interview, it's like you'd be picturing something closer to his performance in Mindhunter, as bold of a statement as that is. But yeah, I just thought it was so funny. They were like, "Oh, that guy's so good as Manson. Let's just get him to play him again." I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, that is really.
You don't see that often. Like you don't see somebody play the same character in 2 different fictional universes. You know, the only other one I can think of, weirdly enough, is like Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. He played Deadpool in 2 different fictional universes. But yeah, it's interesting.
And going into round 3, I mean, there's some still really good films on the board here. I'm really interested to see how you guys are going to round this out. So, round 3, Jake, what we got?
Yeah, it's going to be pretty easy for me. I gotta go with Pulp Fiction. That's the.
Yeah, you left it on the table for me. You were like, I'm not gonna be shrewd. I'm gonna leave Pulp Fiction.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought you might have taken that one, but no, I mean, yeah, those are like the 3. I believe the 3 9 out of 10 Tarantino films for me are Hateful Eight, Django Unchained, and Pulp Fiction. Yeah, Pulp Fiction is a classic. I don't know what else. I don't know what I can say about Pulp Fiction at this point. It's a very well covered movie. But yeah, like the standout for me is Samuel L. Jackson's performance as Jules. And yeah, what can you say about Pulp Fiction?
That hasn't been said 1,000 times.
Yeah, but I mean, you could also, there are those rubber band suspense scenes in Pulp Fiction where some of the tensest scenes I've ever watched are in Pulp Fiction. The one I'm thinking of, Edward, is the scene in what is it, Zed's or whatever, hardware shop or whatever that place is,
Zed's
where
dead,
Bruce Willis Bruce Willis like starts to escape and then he kind of feels bad and goes back, and just that scene is just
rescues Ving Rhames.
Yeah, because like every part of you is like, dude, just get out of there, but then there's also that part of you that's like, yeah, I mean, you should probably help this guy out, even though he is your mortal enemy.
Yeah.
And it's a big moral stand for Bruce Willis's character too, but yeah, so gotta pick Pulp Fiction.
Okay.
That's my fantasy football Tarantino team.
Okay.
I was gonna say you got to be pretty happy getting all 3 of your 9s going into all 3 rounds. So
yeah, right.
Dream list for you. We'll have to see what everybody else thinks. Edward, round out your list, man.
Well,
last
then
movie.
It's up to me. We've chosen 5 movies. We have 4 left because we have Reservoir Dogs, which is a movie of this week. We have Inglourious Bastards, Jackie Brown, and Death Proof. Now, for me, this really just comes down to Jackie Brown and Inglourious Bastards. Inglourious Bastards obviously has Hans Landa and it has Brad Pitt. And it has Michael Fassbender, which is one of my favorite actors ever. And for my money, Inglourious Bastards has 2 of the greatest scenes ever made in film, which is the opening scene of the movie, where the people are hiding under the boards, and Hans Landa is drinking milk there with that guy. And it opens the movie and it stretches for like about 17 minutes maybe of just ongoing kind of tension. And then it also has a scene in a bar with a very classic number 3 thrown up that just kind of gives the whole thing away. Have you seen that movie, Jack?
No,
incredible.
That's part of the reason why I came up with this activity is to rank some
Inglourious Bastards has an incredible scene of just this very subtle thing where these guys are trying to kind of infiltrate. So to me, that movie has like these 2 wonderful scenes. But then the issue that I have with Inglourious Bastards oftentimes, and I think I have the movie rated at a 7 right now, is that outside of those 2 scenes, the movie often falls apart because you're just kind of everything else other than those 2 scenes is just kind of very by the books Tarantino. Just okay, so I guess this is what's happening, because Tarantino started with this kind of whole revisionist cinema that he's been on, right? Which Reservoir Dogs is part of that, and Django and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is part of that. Just kind of revisiting these very tragic, traumatic events in history that people might have a lot of what do you call that? Just trauma, right? And a lot of kind of generational trauma about these things, right? Whether it be slavery, whether it be the Manson family and what happened in the 60s, and the kind of hippie scare that kind of birthed, or whether
wait, how does Reservoir Dogs fall into that?
Well, because it's about Nazis.
Reservoir Dogs? You mean Inglourious Bastards?
Yeah, Inglourious Bastards. My bad. I misused the words.
Okay.
Yeah, but because it's about the Nazis. Thank you for correcting me there. So but I feel like the issue that Inglourious Bastards has is that it was kind of his first go at it, and I don't think it really sticks the landing in a very gratifying way, or in a way that I think pulls the movie together. A lot of weak scenes there that are, I feel like, as weak as the strong scenes are strong. So that being said, my third pick for my overall draft of Tarantino is going to be Jackie Brown.
I knew that was going to be on your list somewhere.
Which is his 1997 I Am Undefeated Tarantino movie starring Pam Grier, Samuel L. Jackson, Robert De Niro, Michael Keaton, and Robert Forster, right? And I love Robert Forster in this movie because he's kind of the romantic interest for Jackie Brown. Jackie Brown is just a woman with a goal, right? There's a little bit of revenge in this movie because there's this villain in Samuel Jackson that she has to outsmart, defeat, kind of get to where she's trying to fool him. She's trying to work with him towards the same goal, but also kind of double trick him and double back on him. I think this is a great film, underrated in Tarantino's run, because like I said, this is Tarantino's I Am the King movie, but it kind of blew up in his face. And what I mean by that is that Tarantino made Reservoir Dogs. Reservoir Dogs did really well. And then he made Pulp Fiction. And Pulp Fiction did fantastic. He won, I think the movie won the Palme d'Or, if not best director at Cannes. It made gangbusters. It was nominated for the Oscars. Like, it was a huge success. So Pulp Fiction, as it did for a lot of filmmakers in the 90s that made a movie like Pulp Fiction, opened the doors for Tarantino to do whatever he wanted. What's your dream project? What do you want to make? Like, what is in your heart? Now that you are this God, bestowed filmmaker, we'll give you whatever money you want. What do you want to make? And he wanted to make this kind of subversive blaxploitation film, right? With this black heroine just being this centerpiece of his film. And interestingly enough, somebody whose career parallels this one is Paul Thomas Anderson, because they are very much kind of neck and neck. Paul Thomas Anderson in the 90s also made his first film, Hard Eight, and then he followed up with Boogie Nights, that was as successful as Pulp Fiction, and then Paul Thomas Anderson made Magnolia, which is, I think, the equivalent to Tarantino's Jackie Brown. Just the movie that the filmmaker makes after they make the big success, right? The movie that they say, I'm going to now have whatever money I want to make whatever piece of art I want to make. And for Tarantino, this is an underrated movie because it also didn't make that much money, which kind of then kicked Tarantino into high gear and thinking, I have to make the greatest movie ever made next. And then he made Kill Bill. But yeah, wonderful movie. Again, shot by Robert Richardson. Wonderful performances from everybody in the cast. An insanely underrated Robert De Niro performance. And this kind of guy that is
Lewis.
Lewis. He's playing this guy named
Where's
Lewis.
Where's the car parked, Lewis?
Exactly. He's playing this guy named Lewis, who's just like this ex-con guy that is very much all just kind of like id, right? He just kind of does whatever it is that he feels like he wants to do, and has a tiny fuse, a very short fuse, which makes for an incredible scene in this film. I've seen this movie twice. I've loved it twice. Have it at an 8. It might be a 9. I love Jackie Brown. For me, this third spot, was always going to come down to Jackie Brown or one of the 3 movies that Jake has in his list. But I going into this, I knew I wanted Kill Bill and Once Upon a Time in my list. But Jackie Brown, I could replace it with Pulp Fiction. I could replace it with Hateful Eight, or I could replace it with Django, because I think all of those 4 films have a baseline of greatness. But yeah, that's my list.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, no, Jackie. I need to rewatch Jackie Brown.
Yeah, the movie has a sour taste, doesn't it?
Oh God, yeah. we were interrupted during the runtime of that movie for a fucking with a fucking temper tantrum.
Yeah.
But anyway, baby bullshit temper tantrum. But we won't talk about that.
No.
But fucking so yeah. Dude, why don't I remember Michael Keaton in this movie? I'm looking at the poster. I don't even recognize his character. Who the hell was he in this movie?
He was in there somewhere. And Chris Rock. Chris Tucker's in this movie too. A lot of people just kind of sneak into that movie.
Wait, Michael Keaton as ATF agent Ray Nicolette. Okay, yeah, because there is like a law enforcement presence in this movie too. Yeah, well, Jackie Brown is great. She's a great character because she's a flight attendant, right? And she just uses her wits throughout the movie. She's just brilliant con artist, and it's just so satisfying. It's just such a great kind of power fantasy to watch her just con the ATF, the police, crime boss, other con artists. It's amazing. Yeah, it's fantastic. And yeah, movie. Robert De Niro's character.
He's so great. He's so great in that movie.
Where'd you park the car, Lewis? Yeah. Is it this aisle, Lewis? I'm serious. Don't say another fucking word. I'm serious. Don't say one more fucking word.
He's amazing.
Okay, Lewis. Bam.
He's amazing. He's amazing in that movie. You have to watch that movie, Jack. Maybe we'll have that one for an episode. It's such an underrated film.
Okay. I definitely want to watch pretty much all of these. You guys made all these movies sound worthwhile watching. So,
yeah, they're great. I mean, they're just Tarantino. He's just a special kind of filmmaker because he's like he creates these genre films that pay homage to. They strike that perfect balance where they bring familiar ideas and they put them in a fresh context, or kind of a brand new idea into a familiar context. You know what I mean? It's like, like you look at Hateful Eight and it's like, you take this, this familiar idea of sort of a paranoia, who's the rat, who's who, kind of murder mystery, and you put it in the fresh context of the Old West. He just does that so well. But then he also brings, he brings phenomenal dialogue that is just ever quotable. Like there's no filmmaker that's made more quotable scenes than Tarantino, I don't think. And on top of that, themes that come out through the dialogue and through just the plot and the characters and everything else that resonate, and I think make people come back to it. Yeah, he's special, man, and I'm kind of waiting. Yeah, I don't know. Who knows, man? He might be kind of irreplaceable because I don't know. I was kind of hoping that S. Craig Zahler would come through, but that guy hasn't made anything in a while.
No, he's sitting on his monies. He's like, oh, fine.
Yeah, what's he doing?
I don't know, man.
Yeah, because I mean, he really, especially with Dragged Across Concrete, pretty much Dragged Across Concrete, like Bone Tomahawk, Brawl in Cell Block 99, but Dragged Across Concrete, I was like, oh shit, like this guy could be a new Tarantino, not in the sense that his movies really feel like Tarantino films. They sort of do sometimes, especially with the 70s homages and everything. But
I can tell you what he's up to right now.
Just the way he's a genre filmmaker, and who deconstructs genre. But yeah, go ahead.
It says here that as of May of last year, he's working on a movie by the name of The Bookie and the Bruiser, with Vince Vaughn and Adrien Brody to star. So he's working on something. But it might not be out until maybe 2026 or 27.
Adrien Brody from The Brutalist? Oh, okay. Nice.
And Vince Vaughn from Wedding Crashers
are like the right. Yeah. It's so funny, man. I love how Vince Vaughn keeps working with him, man. It's awesome to see Vince Vaughn in these dramatic roles.
Yeah.
I mean, he's great in Brawl in Cell Block 99, and then awesome in Dragged Across Concrete. But yeah, no, nice. What were we saying, Jack?
I was just saying. I mean, I could definitely tell that's a Tarantino type trait because a lot of these movies that we talked to had, very reoccurring characters, and I think it's so awesome to see, like a director have that and a screenwriter have like some, a crew of people that he really enjoys working with.
Yeah, I love
seeing
that.
Them in different roles.
Yeah, dude, I love that. That's like one of my favorite things. It's like it's so much so that when I thought about being a filmmaker, my thought was like, oh, I want to just work with like the same people over and over again because it just seemed so much fun. I remember when I watched Drive by Nicholas Winding Refn, and he worked with Ryan Gosling in that movie. And then I saw Only God Forgives and Ryan Gosling's in that movie. I'm like, oh, that's great. Just like working with the same actors. And then with Derek Cianfrance that made Blue Valentine, also with Ryan Gosling. and then he made The Place Beyond the Pines, also with Ryan Gosling. Just like seeing, I love that, just seeing a director collaborate with an actor. That's also part of why I fell in love with, as actors like both Gosling and Michael Fassbender, because Michael Fassbender, he just kept working a lot with Steve McQueen, which is one of my favorite filmmakers, because he made with Steve McQueen Hunger, and then Shame, and then 12 Years a Slave, just back to back to back roles in his films. I love that about Tarantino. I love that also about Paul Thomas Anderson, because he often had Philip Seymour Hoffman in his movies, often had Julianne Moore in his movies. He had Philip Seymour Hoffman in like 4 out of the movies that he made before Hoffman passed away, sadly, which that upsets me that Philip Seymour Hoffman's dead. I was actually kind of watching like interviews and clips of him like last week. And then, with Joaquin Phoenix, who is my favorite, actor, he made The Master and Inherent Vice back to back with him. So I love filmmakers just working with actors, just working with them and squeezing them and putting them in different roles, which I think this can lead us into this can be a good segue. I have a little bit of a.
Let me just wrap it up then before we go, and then I'll let you do that segue. But one more time, reading through the list, Tarantino movie draft, we had Jake with The Hateful Eight, Django Unchained, and Pulp Fiction. Can't speak. As 1, 2, and 3, and then we had Edward's list being Kill Bill Volumes 1 and 2, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Jackie Brown. Both great lists. I haven't seen all of these movies, but I've seen a couple of them, and definitely gonna take this to the drawing board and watch some of these movies. For the listeners, take to the comment section. Let us know, Team Jake, Team Edward, whose list do you think was better? And
Team Edward,
look forward to
Jacob,
seeing
it.
Dude. Back at it again.
Yeah, I should have said Jacob.
Back at it again.
There you go.
Okay.
But yeah, lead us into your topic, Edward.
Okay, so I have a topic talking about celebrity.
Topic,
this is kind of film adjacent, but I've been seeing, I don't know about you guys, I've been seeing a lot of ads lately featuring one Mark Wahlberg. Have you seen these ads?
The prayer app or whatever?
Yes.
Yeah.
Featuring him. Featuring
I was wondering if you would take a few minutes to pray with me real quick. Yeah.
Featuring one Chris Pratt. Featuring other celebrities.
Stefani.
Yeah. And they're just, coming up there, looking at me right in the eyes as I'm pooping, and asking me, do you want to take a minute, just 1 minute with me? Join me in prayer, and then they do a quick prayer. And then they go, join me on Halo now, So there's an app named Halo.
Yeah.
I guess where you can go and do celebrity prayers every day.
Huh.
I'm not here to shit on Halo. I'm just, this is kind of just part of this little bit of this tangent that we're going into. But
yeah.
The thought that I had watching that was, what would we do because celebrity is involved, right? We've known for a long time that celebrity are involved in like social media, right? Celebrities are involved in NFTs, and celebrities are famously involved in politics. Celebrities like to tell people, the common folk like me and you, who to vote for, right?
Yeah.
So that being said, I guess I just have this kind of like thing in my head, right? Of like, what would we do? Like, what is the thing? What is the line, right? I'm not going to vote any given way because a celebrity is telling me to, right? And also, I'm not going to join Halo and go into prayer with Mark Wahlberg because he's telling me to. But the thought that I had was like, what is the sell for me? What is the sell? What celebrity specifically, has to come in here, try to sell me on something? I'm not vegan. But Joaquin Phoenix has been trying to sell me on veganism for a while. He's a vegan.
Yeah.
But obviously for Joaquin, I'm not willing to go vegan. For Mark Wahlberg and Chris Pratt, I'm not willing to download Halo and join them in prayer. And
I decided to go vegan after watching Peppa Pig. That's what turned me vegan. I just couldn't handle the idea of Peppa Pig and her entire family being shoved on through the slaughterhouse.
Definitely
shoved through
wasn't
the grinder and onto our skillets. Couldn't take it.
But
it definitely wasn't just a forced dark ages of our childhood that we had no say in.
Jack's family and my family went vegan like when we were like 11, 12 years old. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
But it was more of a health thing, but yeah.
For us, for me growing up, there was just a time, I think, what is it? It's like, fuck, I don't know what the name of it is in English, but I'm just gonna say what it is. Maybe you guys know. But it's just like period. It's like this kind of religious biblical thing. It's like a period of time where you don't eat meat. You just like eat fish. You can only eat fish basically, and it's like 40 days.
Just fish?
Yeah. No, like not just fish, but the only meat you can eat is fish, but you can eat everything else.
So it's like pescatarian type.
Yes, but it's not like this pescatarianism that people do for religious purposes. I don't know what the name of it is, but it's like a 40-day thing. It's like for 40 days you don't eat chicken or red meat or whatever. And as a kid, we were forced to do that. Like every time at some point during the year, my mom would be like, we're only eating fish now.
Was it Lent? Is that Lent?
I think it is Lent.
Lent is when you give something up, because we did that. Like we did, like you got to give up something for Lent.
Yeah, I think it's something
I would
like
pick something that wasn't that hard to give up.
It's something like that
because I was a good Christian back.
It's something like that, but how it manifested for us was that we would just not eat like meats. And we just eat like vegetables and fish, And I hated it because we eat cod all the time. But, I'm not going to vote for whoever based on the fact that Taylor Swift is telling me who to vote for them, right? But the thing is that there's people who do, right? That's why they do this. That's why they bring Beyonce out. That's why they bring Kid Rock. Because there's
I saw Kid Rock on Bill Maher's show a few weeks ago. He was on there just talking about how much he loves Trump. He was just like at one point Bill Maher's interviewing him and was he?
Yeah.
At one point Bill Maher's interviewing him and he's like, so Kid Rock, he's like, you like Trump? And Kid Rock goes, I don't like Trump. I love Trump. And like, it was like, what the
my God.
He looks horrific too. He's like got this long, like he's got hair that goes down to his ass and it's like all frizzy. The dude looks just haggard. He's like on there like, I love Trump, brother.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not making any life decisions based on this guy.
Yeah, so again, but there's people who are, That's why they pay them. Halo's paying, Chris Pratt and Mark Wahlberg money to do these little prayers and to get people involved. I don't know, man. I don't know.
It's a thing where it's been happening forever in marketing, where they have a certain celebrity like just marketing a product, like, oh, I'm Lil Yachty and I drink Sprite or whatever.
Yeah,
it's like people. I think you already there's a bit of persuasion here, which is essentially like planting everyone knows what persuasion is, but like persuasion is this concept developed by I don't know if he developed it or he just kind of coined the term or whatever, but obviously the actual mechanism has been around since the dawn of time. But it was the guy who psychologist who wrote the book Influence, and he has a book called Persuasion, but he talks about how there's certain elements of persuasion where it's like you actually plant the seeds before the actual persuasion is happening. And I think a lot of persuasion happens with that stuff where you have to have already kind of identified with a guy like Kid Rock. Like he has to be kind of the archetype that you are.
And that's that's the seed before the product.
That's my theory on it. Yeah. Cause like, I'm not gonna, change my views based on what Kid Rock says, or even really examine my views based on anything that Kid Rock says, because first of all, I don't really know anything about Kid Rock, but also, like I take a look at him, I hear him speak, I'm like, I don't identify with this guy, I can't think of many celebrities that I'm like wholly identify with though, but I think there's a lot of people that feel like, oh, I am that celebrity. That celebrity is so me.
Right, they just create these entire social relationships with them.
Yeah. I will say, Mark Wahlberg, I did, because of that app, I did download the or because of that ad, I did download the Hallow app only because my logic was, Mark Wahlberg obviously prays a lot. He was in Boogie Nights, and obviously he showed us he had a massive penis in Boogie Nights. So I figured if I download the Hallow
You'll
app,
grow one too.
I'll grow as large of a penis as Mark Wahlberg in Boogie Nights, and that's so that ad did get me. They did get me through that. But if I hadn't seen Boogie Nights, I wouldn't have done. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Which is so funny that like Mark Wahlberg did Boogie Nights, and now he's like, "Hey, I hope you'll take a few seconds to pray with me real quick."
That's the funny thing about it, though. And for anybody who out there being like, "Hey, yeah, it's a prosthetic, it's not a real thing." But the penis.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's not. It's not his real sausage. But outside of that,
ooh.
But outside of that, it's really fascinating, isn't it? Because if I think about it, right, the only thing that I think, if somebody who I really like, right, which again, I don't have that kind of relationship with a celebrity, but it's like maybe a video game, maybe like some small thing, I would be like, oh, I'm gonna, But I think these days, the celebrities, right, we can think about them as maybe like D-list celebrities that really move the market are influencers, right? And not even celebrities anymore.
Yeah.
But just people like Show Speed or whoever, right? And I think the most applicable way of that for me are like movie reviewers. Because I think oftentimes, right, I remember when I was a teenager, if I would watch, let's bring back the beating up cow of the Critical Drinker, Chris Talkman. If I watched Chris Talkman, right, as a teenager,
right,
then he would sell me on a movie, and I would be like, I'm going to watch a movie because Chris Talkman says that he likes that movie, so it must be at least worth watching, right? So then there's that level that we're all engaging with, right? Even if we're not engaging with celebrity, right? We're still engaging with these people who influence culture in that way,
Yep.
Like, what are the examples of that for you guys? Like, for, Chris Talkman was an example of that for me before. Somebody like YMS is an example of that now, where like YMS giving a positive review to a movie, I would be like, oh, I'm going to check that out. This guy, your movie sucks. And again, if somebody like, the video game Donkey likes a video game, I'll be like, maybe I can check that out. Donkey likes that game. So there's those elements of life for me that it's still applicable of people influencing me to maybe buy a video game or go watch a movie or listen to an album based on a Fantano music review. What is that for you guys?
I mean, I just want to talk about the trend. I mean, I kind of felt like a little bit at a loss for words talking about like the overarching kind of celebrity influence, because that, as well as both of you, is not something that I really feel in tune with, or that like I give a shit about what most of those celebrities are. But like, we do live in a day and age on the internet where it's like, no matter what, you're on the internet for some period of time. You found your place. You found the things that you like engaging with. I mean, for me, definitely, there's some video games type stuff, definitely some gym type content that I engage with. That's a huge one as far as like trying to sell things, and not something that I'm buying, because I think it's all a load of shit. I think there's pretty much only 3, maybe 2 things that you really need, and it's just protein and creatine. And I don't take, really anything else for like weightlifting. But I mean, that is such a rampant era of, so many of these, influencers who are at a high level, but also even like the micro influencers below them that are even tinier creators that these companies, sponsor, give them a code, kind of how you plugged earlier at the episode or in the sound check before this. So definitely that. I mean, definitely, as far as like the video games, watching like some of the streamers that I like, some of them, a lot of the bigger ones get into, more, they do sponsored streams where a company will pay them to go play a game, and you watch them and you're like, this might be worth watching. I don't watch a ton of video game streamers anymore. And most of the ones I do watch are more like niche. Like I'll watch some like Rocket League streamers, because that's a game I've played forever. But even it'll be like, some of the skins that they have, or like the bundles in the store. You're like, that's pretty cool. One of the, big time ex Valorant player, Tens, which I'm not sure how familiar you are with him. I got influenced recently, so he was a big CS:GO competitive player on the world stage, and kind of in Valorant, which is a very similar game to CS:GO in some ways, but also kind of like CS:GO and Overwatch had a baby. He was on the pro scene of that game for a long time, but he's a big kind of has a big following as far as streaming, just because he's just an incredible player and just has insane aim. I got influenced into downloading this free game Fragpunk the other day just from watching his stream. So I mean, it definitely happens on a variety of levels. Even like playing tennis, like watching the pros. I mean, they're all flexing their own. I got Babolat, I've got Dunlop, whatever, and you're like, oh, I like that guy. Let me get that racket, or let me try the strings he uses, or the grip tape, or whatever, tour grip, or whatever. Like, they're all repping their own products, so it's impossible to not be to some degree.
Yeah.
Everybody in every arena is trying to push something, and that's just the reality of this day and age.
Yeah, and even with us, right? Because I feel like even with us, because we're obviously trying to get people to watch the movies we're watching, right? And that's a time commitment.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, next week we're gonna watch blank, and then for whoever is listening to this, if they haven't seen the movie, they're gonna be like, oh man, those guys are watching that movie. I like those guys. Let me go and watch that movie so I can be part of the conversation, right? It's just like this, like, pyramid of influence, that we're living in, where everybody's pushing something, everybody's influencing you, even your fucking sisters influence you to do something, listen to that guy. That guy's cool. Okay, I'll listen to that guy. That guy's cool, So it's like we're living in this world, man. Jake, what is that for you, man?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of made me think of along the lines of movies. For me, that would be Critical Drinker.
The Drinker, for sure.
I definitely, if he recommends something, I'll most likely check it out, unless I have zero interest in the concept or whatever it is.
So the Critical Drinker recommends The Human Centipede.
No, yeah. I got to pull up that comment now that I saw this past week. I sent that to you, Edward. There was I saw this comment recently on YouTube. It was like a rant. I don't know. The video was like about a totally different movie, but I guess in the video Roger Ebert must have been mentioned somewhere.
Oh, that's right, Ebert. That's right.
And someone comments, even Roger Ebert sat through the entirety of Human Centipede. And then someone responded, that was nothing compared to what he saw every day in the mirror with that droopy face.
Oh my god.
just punching down as hard as you can
on a man who passed. He already passed,
Just so fucking wrong, dude.
Outside of some questionable reviews, the only sin that he ever committed that I know of, anyway, is that he said video games were not art. Other than that, I don't know what he did to that guy to make him
that's stupid. I mean, Roger Ebert had some crap takes.
Yeah, some bad takes.
He just hated on horror. Like, he hated on horror movies. Well,
it's not enough to say that about the poor guy.
Well, no, you shouldn't insult someone's appearance, especially like an old man who was jowling. It's like, it's a pretty natural thing to happen to old people. just kicking below the belt as hard as you can. But anyway, yeah, like, I don't know, Critical Drinker, I'm kind of with him. It's like, yeah, it's not like a sure thing. I guess you can't really say anybody liking something is a sure thing that you would like it, but I don't know. Like, he gave a Drinker Recommends or positive reviews to Reacher, and then Jack and I checked out Reacher, and I didn't think Reacher was that. No, I don't. I mean, it's fine. We fell off. We stopped watching.
Second season,
yeah, like mid-second season. There's nothing that made me care about it. And Reacher feels like something that I would, to go off on a little side quest tangent here. Reacher felt like something I would have written, Edward, in one of our college screenwriting classes, where like there's a bar fight in every fucking episode, you know, and I was like notorious for writing bar fights. Yeah. Like, you know, our classmates were always like, oh, here's another Jake screenplay bar fight. You know, it just felt like something I would write in college, where it just feels so cliche.
Yeah.
It's just riddled with cliches. It's a show that's riddled with cliches. It's like, I'm sorry, I don't believe that this guy who's 6'7", 300 pounds of muscle is walking around, and then like these two punk skaters or like three drunk, out of shape barflies are gonna like start picking fights with this guy. Like that just doesn't. And it's like maybe once, but when it happens like every other episode, it's like, oh my god, okay. It's like the same thing every time. Reacher will be walking, and then like some out of shape asshole bumps into him, and then the guy goes like, "Excuse you," and then Reacher gives some witty remark, and the guy's like, things amp up, things get heated, and then this like, you know, out of shape like Home Depot employee throws a swing, like swings on Reacher, and it's like, this shit doesn't happen. I mean, nobody's picking a fight with this guy. Get the fuck out of here. Like, if you're like above 6 foot, nobody is picking a fight with you, honestly. Let alone 6'7", 300 pounds of fucking like muscle, like Reacher. But anyway, point being, I'll generally take Critical Drinker's recommendations because he has a solid grasp, I think, on what makes movies good and what made like pre-millennial movies good. Rob Ager is another one that reminds me. Rob Ager, yeah, if he likes something, I'll give it a go. Which is rare it's very rare for him to actually give a modern movie his stamp of approval.
Yeah.
So, you know, like Rob Ager, I feel like I have a lot of commonalities with. Like, if I had a dream guest for Film Tangents, probably be Rob Ager.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Rob, if you're listening, which you're not, but if you were, please come on.
Yeah, come on the show.
Yeah. Did you just quote Bushworld Adventures?
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, take us to him. That'd be great. But yeah, that's about as far as it goes. Advertising's weird because it's like I used to have kind of the wrong idea about advertising, and it's funny. I actually work in advertising. It's more you'd more call it marketing, I think, because what I do is a little more on the technical side of things. I'm not like, my job is not sitting here designing ads or trying to get people to buy stuff. It's more analytical, looking at, you know, statistics and stuff and figuring out what's going to perform online, that kind of thing. But I will say, I think I used to have the wrong idea about advertising. I used to, like, when I was a kid, I was kind of like, what is the point of these fucking commercials? You know, like, what is the point of this vacuum commercial? You know, I'm not going to just watch this commercial and then go and buy a vacuum. I think, from what I understand, that's not really how advertising works. It's like, you see a commercial. So take, for example, Geico. We all grew up on these insurance commercials, Geico, Progressive. Now it's these obnoxious fucking Liberty commercials, State Farm, whatever. Yeah, and it's like, and then I realized, like, a couple years ago, I needed to renew my or last year I needed to renew my insurance plan, and I got Geico, and I realized in horror, I was like, oh my god, I've been groomed since I was 6 to buy Geico. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
I was like, it's like they groom you over time to buy this shit. It's not, oh, I'm going to watch this commercial and then run and buy something. No. Like, yeah, that happens. Yeah. But I think it's more about planting that seed, that persuasion, where you see a Shark vacuums commercial, and then 3 years later you need a new vacuum, and you're like, what about that Shark brand? You know, it's like they plant those fucking seeds in there. But yeah, other than like you said, certain reviewers liking certain things, I don't have that for music. Like Fantano, I could give a rat's ass his opinion on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Fantano's kind of a bell curve for me, where I feel like he's got lots of very average. I don't know where I was going with that analogy, but anyway.
He has a lot of questionable reviews, because when you give Kid Cudi all these negative reviews and you love Kid Cudi, then you obviously you're gonna find that guy's opinion suspect, But then it's like you love, but then there's like people that we love, like Death Grip that he loves, and it's like, well, I guess there's something here with the guy, where it's like it's kind of a hit or miss with that guy.
Yeah, or the people he shits on a lot of the time. I'm like, okay, yeah, there's other people that he shits on. Like his review for Gunna's album last year was just a 5-minute video of him sleeping, and I was, like, that's so true though. I mean, that's how I feel about all those guys: Gunna, Lil Baby, Lil Durk. I mean, like those guys. It's like this is like Lil Durk released an album last week. And I clicked on it, and I was like, I already know exactly what every song is going to sound like. And I clicked on 3 songs, listened to 10 seconds, and I was like, yep, they all sound the fucking same. They all have the same beat. They all have the same auto-tune with the same cadence and flow. Not listening to this.
Yeah. To me, those kind of people are not artists. They're just kind of content creators that just create content in the music sphere, but they're not. I wouldn't qualify them as people who are artists, but
no.
Yeah.
But yeah, I saw I came across there's like a collab album between Lil Durk and Lil Baby, and Apple Music's description of it is like the linking up between Lil Durk and Lil Baby was historic. And I was like, no, it wasn't. First of all, no, I have never heard anyone talk about that, first of all. And second of all, they sound like the same person.
They sound like the same person.
Like, they sound like the same fucking person.
Yeah.
Those guys, those 3, Gunna, Lil Baby, and Lil Durk, ruined trap. Dude, like those guys ruined trap. That was like trap. That's like its final, most boring, boiled down.
Because they distilled it. They distilled it. It was distilled, and then it was commodified. Yeah. It was distilled and commodified, and then it's like, well, now we're here.
It's like every song is the same. Not even similar. They're all the same. Yeah. Whereas like I'll listen to like Gucci Mane from the 2000s, and like every song sounds different, every beat, and they're all like, even on albums where they're all just Zaytoven beats, I'm like, these all sound different, at least like somewhat. Gucci Mane uses a different flow lyrically, pretty advanced on a lot of the songs. It's just like they just boiled it down to like the same fucking song every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I can't think of to go back to wrap up the original point, or at least my end of it.
Any other
I can't really think of
influences?
Nah, I can't think of a celebrity that I would consciously. I know that advertising is always working on all of us subconsciously. I'm not going to claim to be immune to that, but I can't think of a celebrity who I would be like, oh, they're voting this way, or oh, they're they like that product. I guess I'll check that out. Yeah. Yep.
I don't know about you, Jake, but the reason why I buy I forget. I'm not gonna do it. I had a bad joke. I'm not gonna go into it. Maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll do it off. Maybe I'll do it off air. I'll do a joke off air, but not here. Do you have something you want to go into, or should we go into recaps?
Yeah, a couple of things. I watched for the first time the other day Glengarry Glen Ross. Have you guys ever seen that movie?
No, it was one of those movies that was always screened at our school, and I never went and see it.
It's a great movie. It's kind of like The Wolf of Wall Street before Wolf of Wall Street. I don't know, it has a different feel though. It doesn't glorify sales. Like nobody's getting rich in that movie, and that's why I found it so effective. You got Al Pacino in this movie. You got the guy from The Apartment in this movie. What's that guy's name? Shit, let me pull this movie up real quick. You got Al Pacino, Jack Lemmon, Alec Baldwin. Alec Baldwin's only in it for one scene though. I thought he was going to be in it more, but he's got that classic ABC always be closing scene. I used to. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I used to work in sales. Mm-hmm. So this movie awakened a lot of shit and I've been trying to forget since the boot camp of sales. But we used to use that in sales. We used to use that GIF all the time of Alec Baldwin being like, "Always be closing," you know. Yeah, it was like the most commonly used GIFs in sales are like Wolf of Wall Street, like in GIFs being in the corporate, like in the Slack or WebEx or Teams chats. Yeah. But yeah, I'm watching Glengarry Glen Ross, and it immediately starts with these guys kind of discussing like, oh, all the leads suck. That's why we're not getting sales. It's the leads. And then you have Alec Baldwin come in, and he's got like this third party guy who is given he's this rich salesman that's giving these guys a pep talk, always be closing, and, don't waste our fucking time, and, the customer is selling you, either you're selling them or they're selling you. I don't think he actually says that, but it's that kind of thing, And I was like, oh my God, it's like I'm back in sales, because I only stopped working in sales. I've only been out of sales for a year and 4 months. It seems like a lifetime ago, though, at this point. But like, I graduated college from film school during the pandemic. So double whammy of jack shit for options, to work in. And, because I didn't want to go into the film industry. Halfway through film school, I was like, well, I like writing, but I don't want to be a screenwriter. I want to write books. I want to write a finished product. I don't want to write a screenplay, and then even if someone buys it or whatever, they just takes years to get it off the ground, and then they turn it into something completely different. But I needed money. I needed to make money. I needed a full-time income. So I started working in sales for telecom. I won't say the company, but it was like Wolf of Wall Street. It was like Wolf of Wall Street. Like, we went on to, there was a sales floor, just desks, computer, just this ocean of desks with salespeople at it, pitching, talking, getting hung up on, cursing, dropping F-bombs when they get hung up on. People got like supervisors in there have speakers playing rap music and motivational music and shit. Like, it was chaos. It was like in the movies. We didn't have quite all the shenanigans that they do in The Office and Wolf of Wall Street. But yeah, when I was watching Glengarry Glen Ross, I was like, holy shit, this is so eerily familiar and accurate, because I just remember so many times, like, it's like it's always the same thing in sales, where it's like there will be these periods of drought where salespeople are just not making sales, and they're like, oh, it's the leads. The leads are shitty. But then there's always that one Al Pacino that's still selling like a motherfucker. And everybody's asking him, what are you doing? And he tells them, and it doesn't work for them. And you're like, what the fuck is this? Is this luck? Is this skill? What is it? And yeah, it's not a world I want to go back to. I was fairly successful in it. I wasn't I wasn't one of those people that, was making like crazy money, but I was making damn good money for a 23-year-old. And then I just remember, like, after 2 years, I mean, I got promoted at that first company, left that first company for a higher paying gig. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I just remember running out of fuel. Like, my fuel light was on, and just being like, I'm running out of gas here, and I just remember, like, just that desperation of like, what the fuck else can I do in life? Like, can I go back to school? Do I try to start a business? Do I try to become a psychologist? Do I go to, at one point I'm like looking up, is it a viable career to be a hypnotherapist? I mean, I'm just pulling at strings, like anything to get out of sales, I landed in marketing, which is like way better, because what got old for me was just coming in every day and having to put numbers up on a scoreboard. It's exhausting, you know? But having gone through that now, coming into a job where it's just like I sit down, I work, and then I'm done, and I have direct control over everything. That was like, holy shit, I forgot what that was like, you know? But I kind of wanted to open it up to you guys here because I remember working in sales. You know, it was my first full-time gig, and I just remember that feeling of like going into a full-time gig for the first time, and just that realization that your free time is gone in a way, or it's not what it once was.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Like I just remember I remember because for training, like the actual sales floor was this big Wolf of Wall Street type floor with these big, beautiful windows at the back that let lots and lots of sunlight in. But at first, when we were in training for like the first week, they stuck us in this like hole in the wall office in the middle of the building with nothing but these bright white fluorescent lights. And I just remember sitting there and man, you just look at the clock and you're like, all I had worked before this were part-time jobs. Part-time jobs or just gone to school.
Mm-hmm.
And in college, like at least at film school, like, you know, we had schoolwork, we had assignments, we had shit we were doing, but we had a lot of free time too.
Yeah.
You know? And I just remember sitting there like, holy shit. I couldn't believe. I'm like, because, you know, going into it, I'm like, well, that's not that bad. Like a 9 to 5, you know, or in this, you know, in this case, 8 to 5 with an hour lunch.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, that's not that bad. You know, you just go in and it's part of the morning and part of the, or most of the afternoon, and then you're done. But it's like, man, you don't realize how big of a chunk that is out of your day until you've lived it, you know? You know, like man, and I remember sitting there like after a few days and looking at that clock and just being like, man, it's only 11. And I got how many more fucking hours of this shit? Oh my God. And then I started, you know, and then you start thinking like, well, at that time, I'm still thinking in school terms, you know, where I'm like, okay, well, summer vacation's coming up. And then I'm like, wait, no, there's no fucking summer vacation. And then I'm like thinking about Christmas and I'm like, well, there's no Christmas break. And I'm like, holy shit. I just remember that feeling dawning on me of like, oh my God, this is life. I can't fucking believe this. You know,
I had such a different experience, but like scary in a different way. So I'll go ahead and share. So I did not have this like 9 to 5 grind. Like I went to school for engineering and I went to a very big company for a telecom analyst position. And I did it, you know, some work there during undergrad as an intern and then transferred over to there full time and remember being like, you know, having it in my head like, okay, once I go full time, they're going to train me and sit me down. I'm going to go through the classes. I'm going to learn more about like what this stuff is. You know, I'll really get into the weeds of it. Like I have an idea of what I'm going to be working on. And then day one of starting, it's like it literally was just like a continuation of my internship. I didn't get any training other than, you know, like basically, you know, being like, ask this guy if you need help with anything. And then I'd ask him and he'd be like, send me a link and be like, here it is, go do it. and, and in my internship, I worked like 40 hours a week during the summer. And then over the course of the senior year, I worked like 10 hours remotely per week and got a nice little paycheck for just, but there was never really that much work. And I was like, all right, once I get full time, they're going to start giving me stuff. I'm going to start getting involved. I'm going to get trained. I'm going to start learning. And then I was like, none of that's happening. And then I was put on a project that I, you know, wasn't informed I was going to be on. And then just kind of like they're like, oh, it's going to get so busy in this job position. You're going to get trained up and learn what to do by shadowing this guy. And then, it never got that busy. And I've just kind of been meandering there and just feel like, my stress not coming from like the burnout, but being like, I'm surrounded by people who have been at this company for 40 years. Like people are, like every month they're like, so and so is 30 years, 35 years, 26 years. Keep going, you've got it. And they're like sitting at the desk next to me, and I'm like, dude, if I there's no, I'm not sure, if I can't find something else to get out of into something else, I'm gonna be stuck here for 25 years, 30 years. And I'm just gonna be sitting around and just kind of doing this mediocre ass job and just doing the bare minimum, and then I'll get my little 3% raise at the end of the year and a little bonus, and yeah, that'll be that. And I was just like, the thought of being stuck at a big corporation until I'm 65 is one of the scariest thoughts that you could have, especially when you're bored shitless, which I have been, and which is why I'm especially not going to share what company this is.
Yeah.
But I have a light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm going to be starting a new job in June.
Nice.
And I think I'm going to have a little bit of the Jake experience where it's going to be like, oh, this is a real job. Okay. They're going to have me training. They're going to have me on site. I'm going to be ass in the chair working. So I'm going to probably come and double back to Film Tangents and be a little more grateful for my, slow job life, but it's all for the best.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it's, I was just gonna say, it was kind of, it's kind of an inverse journey for me, because for me it was. So I'll share this one. I think the best thing, because here's the thing, I have no regrets about doing sales, high pressure sales. No regrets. I'm really glad I did that, because I think my experience would have been far. I think it would have been far worse if I started a job that was lower stress, but also still sitting in an office, because I just think I would have had all those feelings that I described before, but also without that motivation of well, I can at least make a shitload of money while I'm here, and I kind of learned this this tactic, this motivation tactic, when I did sales, because you got to understand, this was outbound small to medium business telesales, cold calls, and we had to do 150 of them per day at this company that I worked at. So people would ask me oh, how many calls do you have to make? 10, 15? I was like, 150, dog, is how many we have to make in 8 hours. And it was a few hours of talk time too that they wanted. And so it's you're fucking grinding. And I mean, it was dude, if you got up to take a piss, you'd come back and have a manager being hey, why haven't you been on the phone for 5 minutes? It was you had to fucking be on it, dude. I would come in and just pound, caffeine, just being fuck, I need to, you could not. I mean, dude, fuck, God forbid you went in there tired. I mean, you were screwed, dude. But I learned sort of these motivational tactics that continue to help me to this day. It's something, I'm going to pull a bit of a Rob Ager here and coin a term here, but it's something that I like to call motivation stacking. And what it is basically, there's this whole idea, everybody talks about motivation, right? And I think a lot of times people look at it the wrong way. So I think there's two kind of extremes. One extreme is that you can only work at something with motivation. Classic example, I only write when inspired, and I don't think that works. But there's also the other extreme, which is sort of this grind bro mindset of work without motivation. But I think that's kind of a paradox, because if you're working by definition, if you're doing anything, by definition, there is some motivation, you know? Like, even if I don't feel like going to work, there's a motivation there. And it's to not get fired, to make money, whatever it is. And so the sort of middle ground that I found when I worked in sales was basically what I would do is if I couldn't be motivated by one thing, I would try to be motivated by something else. So in sales, the main motivation obviously was to make lots of money. You know, nobody goes into sales for any other reason generally than to make more money. Otherwise, you wouldn't work in sales. Like nobody wants to work a high pressure job where you have to produce a result daily that you don't even have direct control over, you know? Like you can execute to the best of your ability and come up short. It's just the reality of things. Like sometimes it's just not going to work out on a day-to-day basis. And so nobody's going to do that without an incentive. And obviously the incentive in sales is to make lots of money. So that was the main motivation. But for me, especially at the time, I was still living at home, so I didn't have any bills or anything. And so it was all it was like I had everything to gain and nothing to lose. There was not much of like a fear aspect there. So it was kind of if I didn't make the money, it didn't matter that much. So some days I couldn't really motivate myself with money, especially when I started making money. I got complacent and it was like I don't really care about money today, you know? And so on day if I couldn't be motivated by making money, it would be like, okay, well, I'll do this with the motivation of gaining sales and persuasion skills that I can use for the rest of my life, no matter what industry I work in, no matter what situation I'm in, right? And on days that didn't motivate me, the last resort was, hey, my motivation today is to just hit the dialer, feel the pain, and know that grinding and going through the pain, the sheer suck of business owners answering the phone and cursing at you and telling them that you've called them 400 times and to stop, and understanding that going through that, it it is good for you. It toughens you up. It makes you it gives you those calluses, man, those mental calluses. It makes you, it gets you hard, not in a sexual way, but like in a, it hardens you. It toughens you up, And so I don't know if you're someone out there who struggles with motivation sometimes, try that. Try not only having one motivation, try having three. Like, one that's the main one and two you can fall back on. So like I use it with writing right now. The main motivation is that, hey, I love being creative, but on certain days I don't fucking feel like writing. So then the motivation might be, oh well, I want to write so that I can have a big old body of work, And then on days when that can't motivate me, I'm like, hey, I'm going to do this because it's fucking good for me and it's disciplined. It's making me more disciplined. And hey, maybe it'll make me rich one day. You know what I mean? So try that if you're someone out there who's struggling with motivation. But yeah, Edward, I think you were going to talk about your experience. I know I tangented for a little while there.
Yeah, no, for me, and I want to keep it short. For me, it was one of those things where, like you were in college, before then before college, I had experience with like working a relatively kind of full-time-ish kind of thing. Because I was working as a dishwasher before I even started college, just kind of in that period before then. And I found myself doing just like 30 plus, like almost 40 hours a week. So that was very time consuming. So I kind of understood, I came out of college kind of having an understanding of the rigorousness of it and kind of how time consuming it could be, But then after college and for like about 10 months after college, yeah, I worked in manufacturing, because like Jake said, it was, graduated right out of COVID. And for me, I had like a lot of things that I had to kind of keep afloat, because I graduated and then I just moved out on my own, and I had an apartment with my brother, and so he and I just kind of had expenses and things that we had to take care of. And I went into manufacturing literally for like 9 to 10 months. I was working in manufacturing, and it was literally 12 hours. So that literally, that tests your ability to work and stay concentrated and task, and just ultimately just energy and muscle just working. I was working from 7 to 7. And the I guess the flip side of it was that I was working 4 days, and then the next week I would work 3 days. So I still had like a relatively, it's like, oh, I had 4 days off in one week and then 3 days off in one other week. So there was like that balance of that, but still, like the days that you're there, you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna be here. You go in there and it's nighttime, and you leave there and it's nighttime. And so that I did that work, and it's interesting to think that gets you out of certain lines of work, because I don't think necessarily, like, I didn't leave that job even out of my own volition. Like I didn't leave that job because I was like, I want to leave this job. I was just doing the job. I needed to make money, and then I still found enough time in my free time to write or watch movies or whatever. So I was like, the job is not all consuming, but it does take days. Where it's like certain days I don't do anything but be here. And then go home and eat, sleep. Um, but I remember that the issue for me was that we made a movie with some friends of ours. Shouts out
Mm-hmm.
to Lang and Jake. You guys know who you are. And to Aiden, who I believe, at least Lang, I think it's a longtime listener of the show. Shouts out to Lang. But we went to Chicago, made a movie over a couple of weeks, and I took all my vacation that I had accumulated by that point. I was like, I'm going to take all my vacation. I'm going to go away for a few weeks. And so by the time I came back, I had no vacation. And then there was just kind of a lot of heavy stuff going on in my family at the time, where I needed to go and see my family. And so I explained it to the people I worked with. I was like, hey, I got to go and see my family. And at the time, despite the specificity of the work that I was doing, right, which was like, kind of a lot of just manual labor and a lot of kind of doing, manufacturing kind of shit, lifting boxes and packaging things. I was testing specifically cables at the time, like fiber optic cables. Despite the kind of work that I did, I've always prided myself I've always had pride in just doing a good work. It's like, if I'm gonna be here, I might as well just do a good work, and if I don't want to be here, I'm just leave. I've not been I've not been like a quiet quitter to kind of bring that in. I've not really been that, but I explained to these people, I was like, I gotta go. I gotta go for like a few weeks again. It's like, I know I don't have vacation, but I gotta go. And the way that they put it to me at the time was just like, well, if you go, you're quitting your job, because we're not going to just allow you to take like a leave of absence. So I was like, all right, I quit. Like I'm leaving. It's like, if you guys are giving me an ultimatum on my own life and the decisions that I get to make, then I don't want to be here anymore. And so that was like the end of that. But I did that for literally, I'm pretty sure, like literally like maybe 9 to 10 months. So I left that, and then I was just not working for about a month. Because with that job, the nature of that job, they were paying us a lot of money because of the kind of job that it was, and I was also doing overtime. So I had accumulated like a decent amount of money while I was working there. So I was just like, I'm just not gonna work. I'm just gonna go and see my family and be with my family for a while, and then just kind of shuffled life a little bit. Um, but that was interesting. Those first jobs that you do right out of college are interesting, especially like the way in which you leave those jobs. And I think I have stories about that at work, but I'm not gonna go into that now. But then that led into different kind of work for me that was very gratifying, but very not well paid, which is teaching. Well, the greatness of teaching.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a story for another day.
Yeah, I would say like, yeah, because it was an interesting it was kind of an interesting development for me, because I remember my second year in sales, like I had made a bunch of money, and I was just tired. I was sick to death of, you know, I was sick to death of sales. I was so tired of it. It was killing me. And I was like, man, I was like, I got to figure out a way out of this.
Yeah.
because I can't be in this industry for much longer at all. And I just remember, I remember at the time, there's kind of this temptation to sort of try to look for those TV jobs, which is essentially, oh, maybe I'll go back to school to be a lawyer or a doctor or a psychologist or, I remember at one point looking up like, I was looking into like marine biology. Like what about marine biologist? I could go back to school to be a marine biologist or a paleontologist. I love dinosaurs. And what I found with that stuff is this is my take on that, on sort of the whole like TV jobs, big dreams and all that. I definitely think people should follow their dreams. Don't get me wrong. I totally support that. I'm pursuing a huge dream right now, which is becoming a published author. I want to be a full-time fiction author. That's a huge fucking dream, and I do not support the usage of the phrase pipe dream at all. I think it's a stupid phrase. I think you should delete it from your vocabulary. However, I will say that if you want one of those, if you have a dream or if you're really looking at one of those sexy kind of TV jobs, TV careers, right? I think you really need to be sure, you need to really love it. Like it needs to be the first thing you think about when you wake up and the last thing you think about before you go to bed. Like it's got to be something that you can't imagine doing anything else. Like for me, that's writing. Like I can't imagine not being a writer. Like I picture being, if I picture being a marine biologist, for example, the first place my mind goes is, yeah, but would that afford me time to write? That's literally the first place my mind goes. So if that's something, if you have that for something, goddamn, like go for it. But what I realized in my research of these other kind of career paths was you read about it, you start reading like people's experiences and you look into the industry and you kind of realize it's not as sexy as it seems on TV or how you imagined it. You love dinosaurs, you want to be a paleontologist. No, you probably don't, because it's a lot of sitting around dusting off femurs and just doing grunt work.
Right. And that's
you love the
that's the
I was
thing.
just going to give another example real quick. You love the ocean, right? You want to be a marine biologist?
Yeah.
Well, be prepared to either be stuck in a hatchery cleaning fish poop off glass, or being stuck on a freezing ass ship, smelling like fish, cleaning dead fish, and again, more fish shit. You know what I mean? So, but go ahead, Edward.
No, I was going to say that's the thing, because the number one thing to understand about all that stuff is that it's work, right? Like it's work. Yeah. It's never not
and you got to pay your dues.
Exactly. And then it's the same thing about writing. I've always thought this way. I've always felt this way about writing and filmmaking, that it's work. It's work, like first and foremost, right? Like it's a craft, right? The end product of the craft is the art form, right? And that's what you love. That's what a lot of people love. People love film. They will go watch movies and they go, I love this. I want to make these things, And then for a lot of people, that's kind of like the shattering thing of the work, that it's fucking work. That if you want to make movies,
you got a farmer discipline.
Exactly. Like if you're gonna make a film, right, then you have to wake up, in the middle of the morning. We've made movies, like we've crewed on movies. You have to get up in the middle of the morning. You have to work 12-hour days. You have to be there the whole time. And you have to be putting in work and pushing and plugging and picking this thing up and paying attention. It's
making
work.
Decisions.
Yeah, making a shit ton of decisions. It's work, man. And that's like the thing that's not glamorous about it. But that's always been my mind frame. And I think that's really the healthy thing about it, especially what's healthy about it when you don't think about it. When you refuse to think about it, like you said, Jake, it's like some kind of pipe dream, right? And the first and foremost thing that you have to think about of it is that it's work, Like I've made short films, I've made music videos, I've made feature-length films, and in making any of those things, the number one thing for us, I've been the first assistant director of the movie that we made in Chicago, I've been the director of my own films. And it's like all of that shit is humongous, unglamorous, sweaty, stinky ass work,
Yeah.
But that's,
and you have to sacrifice for it. You got to give up certain things.
Yeah.
You should never sacrifice. I think you should never sacrifice like your health or your relationship
for sure
for anything.
Yeah.
But you need to sacrifice some little things, like there's hobbies that I sometimes would rather be doing than writing, but I just know it's going to eat up time and I need to focus sometimes, you still got to have a loving relationship. You still got to you still got to work out, go to the gym, eat healthy. You got to put in time in other places, and you should go out and have fun still. You got to enjoy life. Like I'm not sitting in my, I don't spend my weekends like from morning till dusk or dawn till dusk, like writing all Saturday and all Sunday. Like I do other things.
Well, because then the whole thing is, no work, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, right?
Yeah.
That's the interesting thing about these kind of mediums that you have to in a way enrich yourself to be able to bring that to the work, so it's like it's not all misery, but there's parts of it that are legitimately are just kind of miserable, but that's just fucking what it is, and that's really the way to think about it. And like I think what you said is good, because it's like then people think about stuff that might not even be like film or whatever, but people think about stuff like being a lawyer, people think about stuff like being a marine biologist, and it's like all of that stuff, even more so than shit like fucking being a filmmaker, all of that stuff is very like labor intensive, and very strenuous, especially as somebody who's witnessed people who have had careers in those fields, and somebody who's like child of parents that have careers in those fields. It's it's work.
Yeah. And speaking from somebody who's not in a creative pursuit, if you're one of those categories, you don't want to be a writer, you don't want to be an actor, you don't have this big grand dream. At the end of the day, for me, my advice to anybody in that position would be to really hone in on what are your aptitudes, what are your strengths, and just that's what you need to play your cards to. If you're going to be stuck working a job, you need to put yourself in a position where you can capitalize on your strengths and the things you're best at, instead of trying to grind the opposite flow.
Yeah. And also too, like I will say on the day job side of things, because the what I ended up realizing, right, with all this stuff is like we're talking about, which is because my realization was this. I'm looking at, like if I weren't a writer, I would probably be a psychologist. I would almost definitely be a psychologist. And I'm looking at that. I was looking at that career path, in a couple years ago when I'm like in the sales grind and I really wanted out. And I'm like, okay, this is how much school and how much fucking money.
You have to get like a master. You have to get a master's for that.
Oh, a master's, a PhD, and it's like how much. Yeah, and it's like, and it's how many hours of internships and how much of like.
It's a life decision that you have to make. You have to make that life decision early on. It's one of those things that you have to commit to.
Exactly. Well, and for me, it was this. It was like, well, I'm not willing to give up writing for that.
Yeah.
And I can't do this and writing. So I'm like, you got to pick a horse and ride it. Yeah. So if my big audacious goal is already writing, then stick with writing. And so what I would say then, but I still have to have a day job. So what I would say to people who, whether you have like this big pursuit or not, with day jobs, I mean, let's say you're someone too who just kind of wants to pay their bills and enjoy their free time. Find something that's going to be low stress and offer you the best work-life balance. Because like for sales, for me, it was just like my day-to-day great work-life balance in sales. It's always just 40 hours, which unfortunately is like people are begging for these days. You're never working like, or not, I shouldn't say never, but at least in the sales roles I was in, it was 8 to 5. And if you were still dialing at 5:01, people would be like, your manager would be like, go home. So, and for me, it was like, okay, look, like I found a job now where it's like I work from home, right? It's a salary position, so there's no enforced hours. Like you get your work done when you need to, and as long as the work's done, go nuts. If you want to go outside and go for a walk at 2, 3 in the afternoon, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's bothering you. You know what I mean? So you got to find, like, you got to try to maximize your free time is what I would say.
Yeah.
Like if you're stuck in these day jobs and these ruts and you just feel like life is all work and it's like, man, first of all, I would say try to find something remote. Like put real effort into finding remote work because that makes a big difference. I know this is starting to go into like obvious land, Captain Obvious territory. So I'll probably slow down here and probably put a pin in this. But yeah, just figure out how to work to lower your stress and to maximize your free time. That's what I would say because most people aren't going to get that TV job or aren't willing to get that TV job. And don't really have like a lot of people don't have that big passion that they would bleed for that they can't live without, and you got to enjoy life, man, like getting up at 6:50 and sitting in rush hour traffic to get to work at 8 o'clock and then working in a high stress situation and your boss makes you stay till 6 or 7, like it, I get that not everybody can up and quit, and I don't advocate for that. I never up and quit my sales jobs. But start working on an escape strategy, find somewhere that's going to treat you better than that has more vacation time, that offers a better work-life balance. And one thing I would say, pay attention to how long people have been there. Because the current company I work for right now, when I was interviewing, everybody I talked to was like, "Oh, I've been here for 3 years. I've been here for 6 years." And I'm like, "Okay, like people are happy here." Versus in sales, if you were there for 11 months, 12 a year, 12 months, you're a veteran. I mean, even like 8 months, you were a fucking veteran. So like the turnover was crazy.
Yeah, well, I've been there. I've been in those jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But hopefully that helps, man, because I really have a soft spot for people who, are just going through the motions and really feel like life is work's just kind of beating them down and feel uninspired. Because I get it. Like most of our happy times and happy memories are going to come from outside work.
Yeah.
Even writing, I would bleed for my craft of writing. But I got to say, when I think back on 2024, all my good memories from 2024, none of them involve sitting in front of my laptop writing.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of when I visited my sister in New York. I'm thinking of all the hangouts I had with my girlfriend. I'm thinking of you, me, and Jack hitting the bar hopping and laughing until our fucking sides hurt. That's what I'm thinking of. So maximize that in your life. Try to find something that's going to allow you to maximize that.
Okay, I'm going to close this conversation out here for the sake of time. Boys, let's get into recaps and let's get into this movie.
Yeah, we got to go quick on the recaps too.
To open up the recaps, I'm going to be very quick because I don't have anything. So you guys take it from me.
Yeah, I'll go real quick here, and then let our host for the week cap it off. For me, I think it's just movies. I watched my girlfriend and I watched the Pixar movie Coco for the first time. Solid enough Pixar movie. Or I know it's Disney. Is it? I think it's Pixar too.
I think it is Pixar.
Anyway, yeah, I believe it is. Be that as it may, yeah, I thought Coco was like a solid Pixar film. It's no Monsters Inc., but I thought it was fairly average or slightly above average. Yeah, 7 out of 10. And then I watched for the first time the 2020 cosmic horror film, The Empty Man, which really flew under the radar, probably because it came out during the pandemic. But I got to say, there's a review from our friend Langston that I really got to agree with, and I'll let Langston's review speak for me because I agree with everything I agree with everything he said. So this is Langston's review. He said, quote, overambitious to a fault. 2 movies that couldn't decide which one to be. One is an average, cliched, run-of-the-mill slasher flick with the standard boom sound effects, overbearing score, and ham-fisted contrivances. The other is a layered, intelligent, deliberately paced cosmic horror, riffing on technology, radicalism, and trauma that suggests a more sophisticated and intriguing thriller. And I'll stop there. He goes on, but that's the gist of it. And I agree. There were strokes of brilliance in this movie, but ultimately because of, first of all, it's way too long. It was like 2 hours and 15 minutes. Like, Jesus, this could have been cut down. But yeah, there were times that I was legitimately freaked out. And times that I was like, wow, this is almost Kubrickian in its execution. And then there were other times that I felt like I was watching some run-of-the-mill like James Wan film, and I'm like, fuck. So it kind of averaged out at a 5 out of 10. Maybe I'll talk more about The Empty Man on another episode, but shout out to Langston, friend of the show. And then I already discussed Glengarry Glen Ross. So that's it for me.
All right, Jack, take us to your recap into the movie.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it quick as well. So started watching Parasite. Never saw that somehow, even though it was pretty talked about and beloved. I actually haven't finished it yet, but got about halfway through the movie, watching it with the girlfriend. And I mean, so far, I'm very much on the hook with this movie, really enjoying it, and just love the way that they build up to just. I don't know. For some reason, I always thought Parasite, like, would be a movie about like some sort of parasites taking over bodies or something. I don't know. I had some like apocalyptic thing in mind for some reason, but I very much like the idea of, this just like, family that's kind of in a really bad position, just clawing their way into this rich, oblivious family and just kind of, becoming a parasite and just leeching off of them. Uh, I mean, it's just so well done. I mean, just even the scene showing in the beginning, like the, like keep open the windows while they're doing the, pest, taking out the pests and they're like coughing. Yeah, if it's free, even though we're going to be inhaling it ourselves. But like that's where they're at. I thought that was just a really good depiction of just like, some of the forgotten people in these, countries and impoverished areas. I thought that they built those characters up really well.
Brilliant film.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a really high rated film by the time I finish it. But I mean, as for now, that's really all I have to say about it. And other than that, I did finally finish Invincible, the 3rd season. I mean, man, there is an epic fight at the end of that 3rd season.
I gotta finish it.
Oh, yeah, and I won't spoil it too much. I won't spoil it, but I mean, there's an epic fight at the end, and I don't know. I feel like there's this theme throughout the whole show that it's just like, Mark is just unable to he's stuck between the identity of, somebody who's human and born on Earth and like has these connections with humans, and then his dad being this Viltrumite who is a conqueror and who is, willing to just say these lives of the people around him are worthless and just very violent and just, destructive of everything in his path. And at the end of this kind of season, it really makes him confront that and to become to kind of a conclusion of like, what is he going to do with those two identities when he's faced of having to pick, one or the other. Which I feel like was really necessary at this point in season 3, where we've kind of seen this be a long drawn out theme, and he's really pushed into some tough areas. Also getting to see, I don't know if they teased it. I don't know where you're at in season 3, Jake.
The last thing well, I don't want to spoil it for other people, but I think like episode 2 probably.
Oh, okay. All right, gotcha. But there's another villain that kind of comes back. And
nice.
Okay. This guy's, I don't want to spoil it because it's kind of like the end of season 2. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to spoil it. So it's kind of like a cool thing though, where this guy kind of comes back and makes like a resurgence and goes all out against Mark and goes all out against Earth, and it's just awesome as well. So it's like the fact that they have 50-minute episodes allows them to take like the 2 last episodes of the season and just cram it with like basically 2 different confrontations that are just massive.
Yeah, and it was about time we got like an hour-long animated show. I think like Invincible might be the first of its kind, if I'm not mistaken.
I haven't encountered any. I don't watch a bunch of like animated. I watch a ton of anime, and that is not common at all. The 20-minute episode is very much the golden standard, and I've seen some instances where the first episode will be 40 or 50 minutes, or they'll release 2 episodes up front, but never like sustained. So like that's what I really liked about the show, is being able to watch something and really kind of get a bigger chunk of that. Instead of watching 3 episodes, you can watch one and feel like you get the same fix or a big fix out of 1 episode. But also keeping it short, being like, we're gonna do 6 episodes of 50 minutes, and like you can just watch them in digestible pieces. So I really like that about that show, but I really kind of was down on it, I feel like, the last 2 weeks, and saying like, it's all right. The end of that season was fantastic and really kind of brought me around to like, okay, this is a really good show and I really enjoy it. So
you're motivating me to finish it now. So
yeah, I would highly recommend. And then similar to Edward, I think has the White Lotus thing going on. I was watching season 2 last time with a girlfriend when I kind of talked about it. We skipped it. I just there was no stakes for me. Like there's nothing really like driving force behind anything that's going on. Like the first season, you kind of see like a murder happen, and they're loading up a body bag into like a plane. You don't see the actual murder, but basically you see somebody at the airport and like a body being kind of put onto the plane and then being like 1 week ago. Second season, like I don't even remember if like anything like that happened. I don't think so. And then the third season that is currently airing, like, I mean, it is like that beginning of that season. I mean, it is like, these folks are at this resort and this guy's, he's in a meditation session, and she's like guiding him through this, like, we're, listen to your breath. And he hears gunshots, and it's just like, there's a shootout at this resort, like just going crazy. And this guy's like going through the swamp and trying to get out of there and find his mom. And it's like that type of just start gives so much more like suspense and just like anticipation of what's going to happen throughout this season. Then something that doesn't have that, and that I think that's going to keep me, definitely a little more interested. So I'm excited to see kind of how we get back to that place.
Yeah, it's been good. Obviously there's episodes here and there that have been kind of like, but I think you'll enjoy it. I think you'll enjoy it for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. But that's all I have for recap.
Well, that means
that
it's Tarantino.
Movie time.
Yeah, it's Tarantino time.
Tarantino Part 2.
Do you want to go ahead and introduce it, Jack, or do you want me to?
Yeah. So talking about the movie of the week, Reservoir Dogs. This is my first time watching this Tarantino movie. That goes through kind of the fallout after a botched or not really botched, but a leaked kind of heist where they're trying to figure out, if there's a rat in the squad, and kind of break down like the events, and it's very outlined in a way where it's like kind of cool how like we have the initial kind of meetup of Mr. White and Mr. Pink, at the safe house, and then the I forget, is it Orange? Mr. Orange is the guy who was shot.
Yeah,
I think it's Orange.
Yeah. Orange, yep.
Yeah.
Mr. Blonde, the crazy guy. And then the other guys don't really matter that much.
Yeah,
no,
Mr.
not
Blonde,
too
Mr.
much.
Orange. Harvey Keitel's Mr. White. Tim Roth, the guy that was shot, Mr. Orange. Michael Manson, Mr. Blonde, the guy that cuts the guy's ear. And then Steve Buscemi's Mr. Pink. I think that's why the four main players we should really focus on.
Yeah, and I like how they kind of set it up and had most of the main characters, in the beginning of this kind of meeting there, and very much, Speed Buscemi planting the seed of just being like, I know somebody was a rat, like I know, and he very much like embodied the role of like the skeptic in that scene when him and Mr. White kind of go aside and leave, Mr. Orange kind of like just bleeding out on the ground, and just kind of trying to figure out, like, I don't even know if you, Mr. White, are the the culprit. I don't know if it's that guy, and he gets pissed off with him trying to blame it on the guy who took a bullet in the heist, which was turns out to be interesting, but kind of love how we go from that to kind of them just having their spats. Like it did go on for a while, and just like this kind of back and forth until we have the Mr. Blonde introduction character, and just him sitting up on the wall like nothing went wrong with his soda in his hand, and he's not really.
I love the idea of him kidnapping a cop, putting him in the trunk, and then proceeding to go through a drive-through to get fries and a soda.
Insane.
Like that, he is probably the most underrated movie psychopath ever. I mean, he's so good, and that actor's great. Like he's in more Michael Tarantino Madsen movies. He's one of the bad guys in Kill Bill. He's in Hateful Eight. And he's fucking awesome as a psychopath in this movie. Yeah, dude, one of the most underrated movie psychopaths ever. And like it's great too because they kind of show this flashback of him where he meets up with Joe and he gets this assignment, and he doesn't seem like a psychopath at first, and you could and at the diner too he doesn't, and you could see how these guys would have just been like, oh, it's just a normal guy. And then just that switch flipping where you're like, oh my God, this guy is, first of all, way too fucking calm for this situation. And then, obviously proceeding to torture a cop. Well, and what he did at the jewelry store too.
Lined him
everybody
up one in a row, taking people out.
Yeah.
I don't like alarms.
Bam. Yeah. Yeah. I told them not to touch the alarms, and they did it. So they got what they deserve. If they hadn't have done what I told them not to do, they'd still be alive. Oh fuck!
So
bone
good.
chilling.
It's cool. Yeah, it's cool how they set those guys up too, like with their personalities. Like you mentioned that with Buscemi, right? But and the movie starts with him. We already know that he's a guy who just questions everything, right? Very skeptical kind of guy. Because from the beginning he's just like, I don't like tipping, and he has like his own rationality about it, and they start this little argument of it, which is interesting because that little opening kind of scene, right, with the camera just on the dolly rotating, always you kind of think that it's just kind of like all this throwaway dialogue, but it just gives you little tidbits of who these guys are, what their personalities are like, how they work, funny little exchanges that even though they feel like they don't really add that much to the overall narrative, like when he gave them the names, he was like, you're Mr. Pink, and it's like, why do I gotta be Mr. Pink, but it's like, oh, this guy's always questioning something. I love Steve Buscemi. It's like, it's actually kind of a shame that this is like his one Tarantino movie. It's like,
I know,
it's like mind-blowing because he feels like a Tarantino character. But he's great in this film.
Yeah, Buscemi's great in crime roles in general. Like he's actually in The Sopranos. He plays a big role in The Sopranos for a couple seasons. He's like Tony's cousin, I think, if I remember correctly. He's fantastic in Sopranos.
And he's kind of like the main boss and or like kind of leader figure in the Boardwalk Empire series as well.
Yep. Did you watch that series, Jack?
I watched a little bit of it. Honestly, it's been so long, I have no idea how much I got through that, but I liked it for a little while.
I think I watched an episode.
Yeah.
Or like half an episode or something like that.
Yeah, it wasn't anything crazy, but it was something to watch.
Yeah. I love Michael Pitt. Michael Pitt's awesome. He's like the secondary character, but I believe his like bad behavior on that set was like kind of what stunted his career, because they like killed off his character and it made no sense apparently in the story
They just
to do
hated
it.
him on
Yeah,
set.
and
This
I
is a
think that
brat.
I think that just kind of halted his career, because he just he's like in nothing anymore. I mean, he was in Hannibal. He was fucking awesome in Hannibal. But anyway, Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah.
I think this is the best. I think this is the best example, or the best use Tarantino makes of the non-linear timeline in his movies.
Yeah.
Because he does it in Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Kill Bill, um, Hateful Eight. He uses it slightly. He has a big flashback in Hateful Eight, and then does he do it in Inglourious Bastards? Is there a nonlinear timeline in Inglourious Bastards? I think there might be.
I don't
Or
think
no?
so. I don't think so.
No.
No.
Yeah, I think you're right. So he's known for it, and I would say it's best utilized in Reservoir Dogs, in the sense that it has the most utility in Reservoir Dogs, where it's like, there's a solid structure to it. It's like new characters introduced. We get a sense of how they are after the heist. Let's see how they were hired.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see how they acted before the heist, right? And that's the formula. He just keeps repeating that. Every time we meet a new character, we get a flashback, or a new member of the crew at least, we get a flashback of how they came into the job. And it just feels like it's utilized the best in this movie. It feels a little bit haphazard in Pulp Fiction. Like, I get it, it's kind of like it's I don't know if you could do Pulp Fiction without it, but it feels a little more haphazard in Pulp Fiction, where it's like, like I remember when I first watched Pulp Fiction, and I'm not going to die on this hill. I could rewatch this and be like, oh, I was totally wrong. I haven't seen it in a while, but I remember watching Pulp Fiction for the first time and being like, okay, that's a little weird. Like, we just saw this character die, but now we're going back in time again, and he's alive again. It's just kind of weird. And then kind of same with Kill Bill. In Kill Bill, it never really seemed like they needed to do the nonlinear timeline. It just seemed like a gimmick in a way. But in Reservoir Dogs, it really feels necessary. It really feels useful, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you have any issue with that, Edward?
Yeah. I would have to revisit Pulp Fiction specifically to kind of put a finger on it, but I do get exactly what you say, because with this movie, we get introduced to these characters. We get that cut of them walking in slow motion with their suits, looking
classic,
looking uber confident, and that scene fills you with this thought of like, there's no way anything can go wrong with these guys, it's Harvey Keitel and his crew, and then it's so awesome how the next cut is like this guy bleeding out in the backseat of the car, because then obviously
disaster.
Yeah, because then obviously it just like brings up all these questions. We have this gap of information, and then we get those answers through this non-linear storytelling, just constantly flashing backwards. So in that sense, I do agree with you, because it feels like this movie was built from the ground up with that concept in mind. Whereas Pulp Fiction, maybe not so much so. But I would have to rewatch that movie. I'll defend Kill Bill even if I don't remember everything. So I stand by Kill Bill.
Because I will say, in Pulp Fiction is more of like an anthology story almost. So I kind of get it with Pulp Fiction, but it does seem, it just doesn't seem as effective, I guess, in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, but
I shouldn't say it's not necessary, but not as effective.
Yeah, but with this movie, and interesting to point out that this movie is co-written by Roger Avary, so this is not like solo Tarantino. He has a co-writing credit in this movie. Roger Avary is a guy that he has like a podcast with, where they just like watch old like B movies and stuff. And they went on Rogan together. That's one of the few episodes of Rogan I've seen in the past year.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
They went in there together.
Saw some of that.
Yeah, and Roger Avary, he co-wrote this movie, so maybe there's a little bit of that to be thought of, that there was somebody else bringing in maybe structure ideas and stuff like that. But I think, like you said, it works brilliantly in this film, and it's definitely the I feel like the fire in this movie that keeps it interesting, right? The introduction of these characters. Again, this kind of build up of being like, all these dudes are just these wise guys, you know.
Yeah.
What went wrong, you know? And like you said, Jack, then having Mr. Pink and Mr. White and Mr. Orange, you know, and then Mr. Pink introduces the whole idea of like, this was a setup, somebody's a rat, the police were there from the get go, like, you know, who is it, what happened, you know? And immediately it also introduces that Hy-Vee Cartel is really protective of Mr. Orange. And he's like, no, it wasn't this guy. He took a bullet. Like, you know, this guy wouldn't be the rat, you know? And then all these questions, all these interactions, all they do is just raise questions. What happened, right? And then we get introduced to more guys. Mr. Blonde comes around. We know how he came about, right? And then that also adds just like an interesting narrative flavor, right? Mr. Blonde and him torturing that guy aside, and us having to see that guy's open flesh wound ear aside.
Yeah.
And that guy seemingly being able to hear Tim Roth aside, because it would be hard to hear Tim Roth if you can only hear from one side and not from this side. All that horseshit aside, right? It's interesting to me how it, and I say this from experience because I know a guy that can't hear from one side of his ear, and you have to like yell at him if you're talking to him from this side, or even yell at him from this side. So it's very specific the stuff with the ears. But regardless, it's fascinating to me. The most fascinating part to me about rewatching this movie was rewatching the Mr. Blonde scene. How he, you know, how they know him. He knows the boss. He knows his son. He's very close to them. There's the backstory. And just seeing how it blows up on Mr. Orange's face, right? How he's like, he was going to kill him, you guys. I had to kill him. And it's like, oh shit. Because immediately when he says that, you're like, dude, you're cooked up, you know? Like, this is the worst line you could have come up with, you know?
Yep.
So it's fascinating. I really enjoy this movie. I've seen this movie maybe 4 times now. I even own this movie on DVD. I don't remember how I got that DVD. I might have stolen it from Mr. Janusz. Shouts out Mr. Janusz. But somehow I have this movie on DVD, and I think that's how I have it.
Well, you heard it here, folks. Edward, thief, professional thief.
I think that's how I have it, because I had a movie before. I don't even remember which movie it was, but it was his, and I went and returned it to him. But I don't know if I did with this movie. But I've seen this movie a handful of times. It's always such a fun rewatch, and it's always great getting to that point, you know, in like the third act of this movie where they show us the Tim Roth backstory, and it's like, oh, he's the cop, you know, and then we get discount Samuel L. Jackson. You know, that was a Samuel L. Jackson role that guy has in this movie. I forget the name of the actor.
At the diner, like the guy who's training him.
Tim Roth.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I could totally see
Samuel Jackson for sure.
Yeah, I could totally see him in that role.
But yeah, no, it's great. Yeah. You know,
like, as a cop, you got to be Marlon Brando. I could totally see.
Oh, dude, 100%,
delivering those lines. Yeah,
100%. But then obviously we leave that backstory, and then we're back to them. All the guys come back. What happened? Why is he dead? Oh, he was going to kill us. You know, they have that standoff, that classic standoff. You know, and then they all kill each other at the same time. Yeah.
Yep.
Really fascinating, you know. I think Tarantino really pulled it through. There's something about this movie. I don't know if it is the length or the execution. I haven't put my finger on it. I wasn't able to put my finger on it this time either. But I keep giving this movie a 7 out of 10. Spoiler to my rating of this movie. I keep giving it a 7 out of 10. Just because I always feel like it's really good, but I never feel like it really reaches me, you know, like the way that his other films do. But what do you think about that? Do you have a finger in it? I know that you rate this movie higher than me. I saw your rating on Letterboxd.
Yeah, I give it an 8. But like, I totally get what you're saying. For me, it's like the length of the entire movie isn't as much of a problem as it is like which may be what you mean, like the individual scenes. Mm-hmm. Some of them do go on where I'm like, oh my God, Harvey Keitel and Steve Buscemi have been arguing forever in this scene. You know, like certain scenes like that. And yeah, like I think it seems like with this concept, Tarantino put in he threw in as much, he made it as thematically layered as he possibly could with an idea like this, because this isn't like some kind of like rethink your life kind of movie.
No,
It's
not at all.
definitely a tight thriller. But with that said, I think he really did put in as much work as possible to take this idea and elevate it to a level where, you know, he really fleshed out the characters, makes you think about some things that, you know, some of the conversations that they have, and yeah, just gives them plausible motivations and emotions. Like I believe the sort of father figure type relationship with Harvey Keitel and Mr. Orange, even though we don't get any of, as far as I remember, Harvey Keitel's Mr. White's backstory.
No.
You kind of put the pieces together. Yeah. Like maybe he had a son that died, ended up in jail. Or maybe he never had a kid and he kind of wanted one, but he was a criminal. And he spent too much time in prison. You know, I don't know. Like you could start filling in those blanks.
That's the great thing about great actors, right? That through his performance, you know that there's something about Harvey Keitel that he believes something about this guy that is personal to him, that goes beyond the idea that he took a bullet, right? And it's interesting because then we even look at that scene where that lady shoots him and then he shoots the lady, you know. It's like, well, that was kind of like a self-defense scene, but Harvey Keitel just puts more weight into that. Where like you said, I feel like he just like, even without Mr. Orange taking a bullet, right? There's something about his character where he was already kind of like infatuated with Tim Roth's character. You know, like you said, for whatever reason, it might be like a father-son thing. And I think it is kind of like a father-son thing, because I think the way the movie ends with him kind of almost like, what did you call that? Like when somebody's holding like a baby. I forget the name.
Cradling him.
Huh?
Cradling.
Yeah, you know, he's like cradling him, right? There's like something about the ending of that movie that is kind of like a father figure kind of thing, like a father-son kind of thing. You know, and then he ultimately admits to him they're both fucking dying. You know, now Tim Roth has 2 bullet wounds on him, so he's just like, I'm a cop. You know, so he kind of fesses up to it at the end of the film. Yeah, very fascinating, very fascinating. But again, despite the sum of its parts, a lot of those parts are not, like you said, Jake. I always have a little bit of conflict with the movie, and also that I always feel like the dialogue in this movie is not as great as his movies then went on to be. I feel like this is like the weakest dialogue that his movies have.
Yeah, possibly. I'd have to think about that, but yeah, I mean, definitely not as strong as it was in Pulp Fiction. Yeah. But I will say my favorite line of this movie is when Mr. Blonde lights that lighter and he says, "Have some fire, Scarecrow." There's just something about. There's just some. Yeah. By the way, fucking so cathartic and relieving. Such a cathartic and relieving moment when Mr. Orange. Even though I've seen this movie before a couple of times,
stuck in the
still in that scene, I'm like, thank God, you're so relieved when Mr. Orange puts that guy down. You're like, yes. But also, I will say real quick, I love that line. Something about a complete and total psychopath who just got done torturing a guy, quoting a 1940s whimsical fantasy film is just so funny to me. So yeah, just and it demonstrates Tarantino's just love for all film. You know, it's like he's making this gritty crime thriller and he's quoting Wizard of Oz. You know, it's just like it's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Final thoughts. I don't think I have much else to add about this.
Yeah, I would just say I think I liked that Tarantino seemed to keep a closed hand of cards during this. Like, you know, until you figure out, like you were talking about, that it was like kind of a self-defense shot. We, you know, are just assuming the whole movie that it was a policeman who shot Mr. Orange, and that kind of gives him some credibility.
Just some
and
lady.
You know, you even think, and you even think Mr. White, you know, is that? Oh, that must be why he trusts it, and trusts him is because they wouldn't shoot one of their own. And I'm trying to think of any other examples of that, because there's definitely, you know, even not revealing Mr. White's background itself when you go to everybody else kind of, you know, keeps those cards in a possibility that it could be him as well. It really did catch me off guard with him being, you know, Mr. Orange being the the cop because of that, and I really like that part of this.
I lost the first time. Like, it's interesting that you say that, because now I think about it and it's like, yeah, I guess I felt that way at some point. Like, I've seen this movie so many times that I don't even remember ever not knowing that he was the cop. But I guess, like, oh yeah, that's right.
Right. Yeah.
This is a mystery, that he is a cop. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was totally like, who the hell is it? It could have been any, but for me it was like, oh, it could be anybody except for Mr. Blonde.
Yeah, except Mr. Blonde.
There's no way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I forgot about how he got shot. I forgot that he was shot.
I did too.
By a woman.
I forgot. Like Jack said, I thought it was like
totally
a police
forgot
thing.
about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great point, Jack.
Especially because of how.
And then also
I saw him take a bullet. And it's like, oh, I guess.
Yeah, and then once you figure out, it's like, oh well, no wonder he was so like privy to wanting to. I won't tell anybody. Just drop me off at a hospital because, it wasn't a risk for him at all. He wouldn't have been going to jail.
Yeah, for sure.
It kind of cleared up that.
And he
part
would be
of it
telling
as well.
everybody because he was an undercover guy. Yeah.
Yeah, so that kind of also was like, there was a sign that he was.
Yeah,
that was a little bit, but the way, like Jake was telling how he acted that scene, at being shot and just freaking out in the back of the car, just being like such a good depiction of somebody who's just, freaking out and losing their cool.
The one who's seeing demons.
Yeah, that kind of makes you think, he's not just trying. He's just trying not to die. Like, like that's normal. So I think there's layers.
Yeah,
for sure.
It works both ways. If it would work if he was or wasn't.
Or wasn't. Yeah. The thing I love about this movie too, the thing that always kind of leave this movie thinking is, what an incredible performance Tim Roth gives. Like. In the makeup they have on that guy, because he looks like a guy that's just dying,
Oh yeah.
And how he lifts his head up, and then thoughts it like just thought, like how he just lets it just fall into the floor like that. I'm like, my God, it's like I would be like, oh, cut. But he commits, man. He's
fantastic.
Great, underrated actor, underrated.
Yeah. But, yeah, he's like one of the best parts of Hateful Eight. Yeah. Like, what's your name, feller? He's like Oswaldo Mobley.
Yeah, yep. That guy. He's so good. He's just one of those characters.
And then Funny Games, the dad in Funny Games too. And then he's Abomination and Hulk. He's like, probably, he is. I haven't seen that movie in like 15 years, but he's probably the best part of it.
Yeah, he's so good.
I remember.
He's so good. He's such a good just character actor. He's just such an underrated guy.
He's terrific.
But yeah,
it definitely did feel like a Departed end of the movie with just quick successive deaths. Yeah. Even quicker than that movie, but in the way where it's just like we walk away from the movie, just kind of like. Even another thing that I was talking with Jake about was I was like, you kind of hear the sirens coming. For a long time as, they're in that standoff or no, not in the standoff, after the standoff and everybody's out and Mr. Pink is kind of making his way out. And it makes you wonder, like, did Mr. Pink make it out scot-free? I don't know. Cause I mean, there were sirens the whole time. Would he really have been able to flee the scene with the diamonds and get out? Like, I kind of like the idea of leaving that open-ended. And thinking, is this something where, the skeptic, it pays to be skeptic and to question everybody, or in the end of the day, did he just spin his wheels and end up, in this, custody and taking the only guy to take the fall for the whole crime?
Oh, the other guys are dead. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, exactly. And so he's going to have to, face the count of the, the psycho who killed all those people and be, partly responsible for that. So I just thought it was a cool ending that way, but I'd give it an 8 out of 10 for me. I really enjoyed it.
So it's 2 8s and a 7. Yeah. All right. I don't know what the average of that is. What is that?
23 divided by 3, 7 points.
7.7. Yeah. But okay, next week for us, everybody.
7.67.
7.67. That's the podcast rating. Next week for us, everybody. There is a trailer by one Paul Thomas Anderson online for his next film by the name of One Bottle After Another. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I saw the trailer.
No, I haven't seen it.
Because it's one of those trailers that's edited to just sell you in the movie and not tell you anything about the movie. So you just leave the trailer with more questions.
I like that.
That's the best.
And this is the first PTA movie that's short for Paul Thomas Anderson. This is the first PTA movie that stars Leonardo DiCaprio. So I'm very excited. I watched the trailer. I'm hyped. The movie comes out like in September. I think it was shot like on one of those like I think like Vision cameras. So it might be like an IMAX movie too. I think it's like 70 millimeter film. Whenever it's in theaters, I'm for a fact gonna go watch it. For anybody who doesn't know, Paul Thomas Anderson is my favorite, I guess, like American filmmaker. Um, all that being said, let's watch a Paul Thomas Anderson movie. Next film, um, let's watch Hard Eight, which is his first movie. This is Tarantino's first movie. So let's watch Hard Eight, everybody. Okay. It's like a 1990, I think it's 1993, 92, something like that. Let's get it.
Let's do it.
Next time on Film Tangents.
Next time. See you guys.